Chapter 1745. 8 days later. Han Fei had already finished drinking the 1,000 venom liquid. When Han Fei took the last sip, the time that could make him dizzy was reduced from more than 3 minutes to about 3 minutes. This meant that his resistance to poison had been greatly improved, and this was just a kind of venom. If he went to the 10,000 poison heaven and ate different poisons every day, he would probably be able to resist most of the strange poisons in the world in several years. Of course, ancestor of 10,000 poison Huang Jie had reminded Han Fei that his current poison resistance was only at the physical level and the soul level. Han Fei didn't know what level of poison this was at the soul level, but he had encountered it before. However, the kind he had encountered before was not very strong. After being reminded by Huang Jie, Han Fei paid more attention to this matter. When he had time, he must inquire about this matter. When the old turtle told Han Fei that they had arrived, Han Fei leisurely left Forge the Universe. Although the improvement of the pure mystic body was fast, Rome wasn't built in a day. He hadn't reached the bottleneck again, but it should be soon. For him now, it didn't matter what his realm was. Anyway, he could still fight against the king-level masters. Along the way, the fleet of the 13 outer heavens didn't encounter a single enemy on the route. This was almost a matter of no suspense. There were 6 kings here, and hundreds of peak-level venerables and half-king-level masters accompanied them. Who dared to ambush them in this situation? According to the old turtle, it took the entire fleet 8 days to pass through the Mist Sea. In addition to the Mist Sea, there were fishing boats waiting on the route immediately. It was the ship of the Grand Purity Palace. Han Fei glanced at it, but because the fleet was not open, he couldn't tell whether it was good or bad. However, Han Fei could feel that the environment in the inner domain was much better than that in the outer domain. In the inner domain, there was no more chaotic spiritual energy, and the purity of the spiritual energy was much higher. Looking at the creatures in the sea, he could sense that there were many explorers among them. However, no one tried to capture them. In the eyes of these people, these explorer-level creatures were like ants. Perhaps only when an ant walked under one's feet would one step on it. Very few people would actively step on an ant to kill it. Therefore, in the inner domain, the strong masters wouldn't attack the sea creatures for no reason. For example, Han Fei wasn't interested in holy spirits below the semi-venerable level. At most, he would eat it as a meal, and the only thing he would consider was whether it was delicious or not. Ahead, on the great ship of Extreme Purity Palace, a king cupped his hands towards the kings of the 13 outer realms. Welcome, fellow Taoists. Ji Xian has been waiting for you for a long time. Most of the 13 heavens of the inner region have already gathered at the Supreme Purity Palace. If we go there now and take the shortest route, it will only take about 2 days. After passing through the Sea of Fog, the environment was much better. Therefore, most people had already come out. Han Fei could tell that Ji Xian's strength wasn't ordinary. The old turtle said, "He's already at the sea expansion realm. His strength isn't bad." Han Fei was lost for words. "The king is here to welcome you?" Han Fei recalled what the Snow Lady had said. The 13 inner heavens meant that they had more than one king. How many kings would the Extreme Purity Palace, which was ranked first among the 36 immortal palaces, have? There was no emotion in Han Fei's eyes, as if he was looking at everything indifferently. In fact, Han Fei was already calculating. This was an enemy. King Crab had once told him about the hostile forces of Yin-Yang Heaven and 9 Palace Heaven. Among them, there were 7 main forces: Extreme Purity Palace, Wuji Palace, Dream Weaving Palace, 5 Elements Palace, Wild Corpse Palace, Investiture God Palace, and Medicine King Palace. In the outer domain, there were only 5 Elements Palace and Wild Corpse Palace. Their enemy was Extreme Purity Palace. The reason why Yin-Yang Heaven was in the barbaric abyss was because of these immortal palaces. Of course, his goal now wasn't revenge. The competition between the immortal palaces would only start when he was at the same level of strength as them. Moreover, there were still many secrets waiting for him to explore in the chaotic Azure Sea. He had to become a king first before thinking about other things. Another 2 days later, before the ships of the 13 outer heavens appeared at the Extreme Purity Palace, everyone had already seen the prosperity of the Extreme Purity Palace. On the other hand, the Grand Pure One used the longsword as a marker. The sword was surrounded by green gas. The wind-moving ship traveled in the sky. As the fleet moved, it passed by hundreds of such ships. The main city of the Extreme Purity Palace was called the Ancient Heavenly Imperial City. It was said that it was the remains of a magnificent city from ancient times that had been transformed into the Ancient Heavenly Imperial City. Different from the other giant cities, the Ancient Heavenly Imperial City was made up of 208 messy highlands, formed by giant islands surrounded by clouds. It looked full of immortal chi. Those who didn't know would think that these islands were the immortal palace itself. Han Fei had seen the thunder-fire sky, the ice-snow sky, the waterwood sky, and the yin-yang heaven, but none of them had such immortal chi as the Extreme Purity Palace. Other than the giant floating islands, there were even more immortal chi. Around the giant islands, there were often people walking on swords, all dressed in green, making them look like immortals. Bingxue Chuling said, "The Extreme Purity Palace is the top of the 36 profound heavens. People born in the Extreme Purity Palace are always proud. However, some people are arrogant, some are aloof, and some are stubborn. That's why the people of the Extreme Purity Palace like to cultivate swordsmanship." Han Fei was confused. "What about the Sword God Palace?" Bingxue Chuling said, "The Sword God Palace is mysterious, but the sword cultivators of the Sword God Palace can only be stronger than those of the Extreme Purity Palace. Since ancient times, the Sword God Palace has been famous for its sword cultivators, who have reached the peak of the 36 profound heavens. Even the sword cultivators of the Extreme Purity Palace want to cultivate in the Sword God Palace. However, the Sword God Palace never accepts disciples from other palaces." Han Fei sneered. "But there's still no match for the Sword God Palace." The Snow Lady interjected telepathically, "The sword cultivators of the Extreme Purity Palace are not much weaker than those of the Sword God Palace. Besides, the Extreme Purity Palace has various cultivation techniques and combat technique. The stronger you are, the stronger you are. Many heavenly talents of the Extreme Purity Palace have found ancient seeds and awakened secret inheritances. Don't underestimate them." Han Fei was intrigued. Awakened ancient seeds? Was it an ancient species like Luo Xiaobai's divine manipulation technique? If that was the case, they were indeed heavenly talent. Swish, swish, swish. The ships of the 13 heavens were anchored in an ancient tree city in the Heavenly Fault Ancient City. There was an ancient tree more than 300,000 meters tall in this city, also known as the Heavenly Fault Ancient Tree. The scenery here was the most pleasant. No matter what the king of the Extreme Purity Palace was like, since he ruled the 36 profound heavens, he must have done a good job. The arrival of the 13 heavens had to be treated with the highest standard. The kings wouldn't go with the Venerable Realm cultivators. The kings would receive them in person. The Venerable Realm cultivators and the Half-King Realm cultivators were also treated differently. For example, in the Snow God Palace, Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling were known as the Holy Children and Saintesses. They represented the Snow God Palace, so they were treated with the highest standard. As for the other 2 Half-King Realm cultivators of the Snow God Palace, they were just Half-King Realm cultivators. Being Half-King Realm cultivators didn't mean they were top heavenly talent. Those who could be called top heavenly talents were the representatives of the major divine palaces. When the fishing boats were anchored, there were people to receive them, but their accommodations were very close. The one who received them was a peak-level venerable female venerable from the Extreme Purity Palace. When the woman saw Bingxue Chuling and the others, she slightly bowed, but she only talked to Bingxue Chuling. She said, "Sister Chuling, it's been a while. I didn't expect you to become a half-king realm cultivator in just 100 years. Bingxue Chuling bowed back. Sister Jingyu, it's been a long time. You've made great progress too. I think it's only a matter of time before you become a half-king realm cultivator." Jingyu smiled. "Thank you for your kind words, sister." Then, Jingyu looked at Han Fei. "This must be the holy child that the Snow Lady just recruited, right?" "I'm Jingyu. Greetings, holy child." Many people from the Snow God Palace looked displeased. Although the holy child's appearance was abrupt, the Snow Lady had been prepared. He was a holy child after all, second only to one person in the Snow God Palace. At the very least, this fellow should call him Lord Holy Child, and not just call him Lord Holy Child. However, the pride of the people from the Extreme Purity Palace was nothing compared to Han Fei's. After Jingyu said that, Han Fei simply glanced at her indifferently and said coldly, "You're excused." "Jingyu." "Everyone." Jingyu was stunned. "Am I bowing to you? I'm just greeting you symbolically." The venerables of the Snow God Palace, including the two half-kings behind him, were much more fond of Han Fei. The two half-kings were even talking telepathically. "I didn't think Lord Holy Child was good before, but now I think he's too manly." The other half-king replied, "Not bad. He's more and more pleasing to the eye. This woman dares to ignore etiquette. She has forgotten who she is." Jingyu frowned and looked at Bingxue Chuling. Seeing that the latter looked indifferent as if it was a matter of course, she was immediately infuriated. However, she was here to welcome a guest and she couldn't be rude. Therefore, Jingyu slightly straightened her body and put on a proud look. "Everyone, please come with me. The 13 heavens of the inner district are all here. Let's settle down early and attend the banquet early." Chapter 1746. The ancient Tree City had always been the place where the Grand Purity Palace received outsiders. There were many ancient trees here, and many palaces and guest rooms were often built around the trees. Han Fei and the others were taken to a mountain peak about 2,000 meters high. There was a small castle-like wooden courtyard here, where Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling were arranged to live. Around the small main peak was a circle of ordinary courtyards for the other members of the Snow God's palace. Jingyu, who was annoyed by Han Fei, stopped chatting with Bingxue Chuling and said, "Holy boy, holy girl, this is where you will live for the next few days. 2 days later, the 36 Xuantians will set off for the secret realm together. Now, please come to the banquet." Bingxue Chuling still had some manners. She bowed slightly and said, "Thank you." However, Han Fei put his hands behind his back and gave off a cold and arrogant aura that said, "Heaven is the boss, I'm the second, all living beings are ants to me." He did not even look at Jingyu. Jingyu was even more resentful. "Why are you so arrogant? Snow God's palace? Which of the 36 Xuantians is worse than you? It's just a title. Do you really think you're so important?" Jingyu thought, with holy boy Shuizhan's temper, there will be a good show later. Han Fei came out as soon as Jin Quan died. The Snow God's palace is a slap in the face of the Golden Crow Heaven. As a king, they won't get angry because of such a small thing. But for the heavenly talents of the Golden Crow Heaven, slapping the Immortal Palace's face is equivalent to slapping themselves. Under the heavenly fault ancient tree, there was a sword observation platform. It was said that an ancient powerhouse once carved a sword talisman on the tree for future generations to admire. It was said that this sword talisman contained the great Tao of sword. However, even after 10,000 years, no one had ever seen a flower grow on the sword viewing platform. Even so, this didn't affect the reputation of the sword observation platform. Many people came because of its reputation. Today, a group of heavenly talents gathered here. Ordinary people naturally didn't dare to approach. Jingyu led Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling to the periphery of the sword observation platform and pointed. "Please. Everyone should have come to the sword observation platform now. They are all heavenly talents, please. Bingxue Chuling bowed slightly. Thank you, Sister Jingyu. After Jingyu left, Bingxue Chuling said, the Golden Crow celestial pole might come looking for trouble later. We can bear with it for a while, but we can't reveal too much of your power. And Han Fei only responded softly and looked up at the heavenly fault ancient tree. The leaves were green, and occasionally there were purple flowers. When the wind blew, a few purple flowers would fall. The scenery was not bad. On the sword viewing platform, there were 26 small square arrays of seats, and in front of everyone was a hollowed-out table. On the table there were spirit fruits and fine wine. At this time, most of the guests had already taken their seats, except for the Snow God's palace. Therefore, when Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling arrived, Bingxue Chuling immediately realized that something was wrong. He heard her say, "We've been tricked." Everyone else was directly invited to the sword viewing platform. Only we were brought to our lodgings first. That's why we're late. Hearing what Ice and Snow Chuling said, Han Fei didn't care at all. That Zheng Yu was indeed cunning. The people of the Grand Purity Palace were really not that good. At this moment, except for one seat that was empty, all the other seats had been taken. Everyone's eyes naturally fell on Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling. Or rather, their eyes mainly fell on Han Fei. Many people had seen Bingxue Chuling before. Han Fei was the only one wearing a mask among all of them. Who else would they look at if not him? But at this moment there was an awkward situation. Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling's seats were on the left side of the ring. From right to left, they could see a sword figure more than 30 meters long on the heavenly fault ancient tree. Han Fei was about to walk over, when Bingxue Chuling said, "Don't go there. The sword viewing platform is for watching swords. If we sit there, our backs will be to the sword figure, and we won't be able to see swords. So we should sit here. Besides, next to that seat there are 6 people from the Golden Crow Heaven." Han Fei thought to himself, what a coincidence. At this moment, someone from the Golden Crow Heaven said with a smile, "We've waited for a long time. Finally, the Holy Lady Chuling is here. Hurry up and take your seats. We're about to start." The other person from the Golden Crow Heaven snorted coldly and muttered in a very low voice, "The Snow God's palace is really impressive." However, all the people present were heavenly talent. Han Fei glanced at them. Only less than half of them were peak-level venerables, and most of them had reached the level of half-king. It was safe to say that these people were only one step away from becoming half-kings. Chances were that they would pass the tribulation and become half-kings someday. With so many experts present, how could their murmurs not be heard? So, many people wanted to see how the two from the Snow God's temple were going to deal with it. Bingxue Chuling looked at a person not far away and asked, "Fellow cultivator Ji Chun, why are our tables placed there?" Ji Chun smiled and was about to speak, when the person who greeted Bingxue Chuling spoke first. "The Golden Crow Heaven is very close to the Snow God's temple. Of course, we have to sit together. Holy Lady Chuling, what do you think?" Hearing that, Ji Chun simply said, "Holy Lady Chuling, please forgive me. I would have arranged for you to sit next to us, but the fellow cultivators of the Golden Crow Heaven are quite happy that you're here. I can't stand in their way." Immediately, the experts of the divine palaces all looked at Bingxue Chuling. Although there were divine palaces that were on friendly terms with the Snow God's temple, it was quite normal for the heavenly talents to watch a show. Besides, wouldn't they be targeted if they showed up rashly? After all, the Snow God's temple would suffer a minor loss at most. At this moment, many people were whispering to each other. Han Fei didn't know anyone here, nor could he tell which side they were from. However, he could hear their secret voice transmission. There were a few righteous women who were sending voice transmissions. The Supreme Purity Palace and the Golden Crow Heaven are going too far. Aren't they deliberately making things difficult for others? Another person responded, "We don't have to worry about it. The glass heaven never cares about the crap of the divine palaces outside. When Han Fei heard this, he took a look at him. 3 men and 3 women from the glass heaven came, a total of 6 people. They all seemed to be beautiful women. It was too easy for anyone who had cultivated to this level to be a beautiful woman. Han Fei didn't care. Han Fei only paid attention to these people. After all, he would have to sneak away with these people. Some people were also talking to each other. Han Fei had only seen the experts of the 10,000 poison heaven. 3 men from the 10,000 poison heaven came and were discussing. One of them said, "If it were me, I would have poisoned them on the spot and killed the golden crow heaven." Another person said, "You're stupid and bold. Do you dare to poison him to death? Once they're detoxified, they'll be mortal enemies." Someone else said, "I remember that the snow god's temple ship docked at about the same time as ours. They couldn't have been set up just because they were a little late, right? Did they fall into a trap? This must have been premeditated." Everyone was discussing in secret. Although Bingxue Chuling was a holy girl, she was so angry that her heart was trembling. She thought to herself, "The Grand Purity Palace has gone too far." Han Fei was helpless. So what if I'm a holy girl? Holy girls are also human beings and can get angry. Seeing that Bingxue Chuling was thinking, Han Fei thought to himself, "What the hell is there to think about?" Han Fei made a decision for Bingxue Chuling. "You're not on good terms with them. They just want to embarrass you today. Why don't you take the initiative to find a way out?" The void of space changed. In an instant, the 2 tables were about to be teleported and appeared in front of Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling. Han Fei attacked without saying a word, which was beyond everyone's expectation. At least in the eyes of the heavenly talents of the 13 outer heavens and even the 13 inner heavens, the snow god's temple couldn't be so domineering. The most inappropriate thing to do was to change their positions. What if they couldn't get the 2 tables? That would be a great humiliation. However, would Han Fei consider the possibility that they couldn't get the tables? He had never failed when he snatched something. However, the void was shaking, and someone from the Golden Crow heaven said indifferently, "Fellow cultivator Shuizhan, aren't you being too petty?" "What? Are you disrespecting the Golden Crow heaven?" Han Fei saw that this person was a spatial cultivator. Han Fei knew that his spatial cultivation was probably not as good as this person's. So, he wrapped the tables with his soul power and forcibly broke through the void. The person from the Golden Crow heaven had a sneer on his face. "This brute, although he's using a small spatial path that's not refined enough. I'd like to see what kind of ability you have to move this table over." Immediately, the person released his soul power, trying to suppress the tables. But Han Fei smiled. "My spatial cultivation is not as good as yours, and my soul power is not as good as yours?" At this moment, Han Fei secretly activated the 100 Beast Soul Devourer in his soul. Crack, crack, crack. Boom Poochie. At this moment, the void was shattered, and the tables appeared in front of Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling out of thin air. And the heavenly talent of the Golden Crow heaven vomited a mouthful of blood more than 30 feet away. It wasn't just a mouthful of blood. This person was bleeding from all his orifices, and tears of blood were flowing out of his eyes. Many people were shocked to see this. Han Fei, on the other hand, sat cross-legged as if nothing had happened, and said indifferently, "How weak." First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1747. Han Fei forced himself to attack and won in an instant, which shocked everyone present. Today, those who were able to sit at this banquet were not simple characters. Everyone knew that this saint child should be extraordinary, but they didn't expect him to be so domineering and strong. Huixian of the Golden Crow heaven was definitely not weak. Although he was at the peak stage of the Venerable Realm, he majored in the Space Dao. Those who could walk on this Dao must be very strong. Although Han Fei just tried his hand, everyone could see that Han Fei's real collision with Huoxian was the power of his soul, and his space Dao should be inferior to Huoxian's. However, as soon as the power of his soul touched Huoxian, Huoxian was immediately defeated. This meant that Han Fei's soul power was extremely strong. Originally, everyone just wanted to watch a show. But now, the people of the Golden Crow Heaven obviously screwed up the show. This loss of face was not a small one. It was a complete loss of face. All of a sudden, Han Fei felt that everyone's eyes were on him. As if nothing had happened, Han Fei teased, "How weak." Then he sat cross-legged and picked up a spiritual fruit. In fact, Han Fei also knew some space Dao. Therefore, everyone saw that the spiritual fruit in his hand was inexplicably missing a mouthful. It turned out that Han Fei had eaten a spiritual fruit in the mask by grafting the void. Han Fei's behavior naturally attracted a lot of attention. The three women of the glass heaven were quite surprised. One of them said, "I didn't expect that he would win so simply and brutally." Another person said, "Who is to blame for this?" They can only blame the Golden Crow Heaven for underestimating the heroes of the world because of the high status of the Immortal Palace. How could anyone who could come here be a pushover? They lost because they underestimated the enemy. Bingxue Qiliang secretly smiled bitterly. Han Fei chose to attack directly. After all, he was a master of the Immortal Palace. He was almost at the same level as a king. How could a king be despised by others? However, Han Fei's attack would definitely make people wary of his strength. However, on second thought, Han Fei probably didn't care that someone was wary of his strength. Someone who could easily kill a half-step king in one move only needed to be careful of the king himself. Not long after the two of them sat down, they heard a powerhouse from the Golden Crow Heaven say, "Fellow cultivator Shuizhan, it was just a joke. Why did you hurt him?" Han Fei said indifferently, "If you dare to pick a fight with me, you should be prepared to be beaten. Why do you need to hide anything?" These words were too direct, directly piercing through the layer of gauze. "The two of us are already enemies. Don't you have any idea whether or not you want to take me down a notch?" In the 13 heavens of the outer heavens, someone from the Avalon of 5 elements said, "This Shuizhan is indeed powerful. However, this person clearly possesses the strength of a quasi-king, yet he insists on disguising it as a peak-exalted realm. Could it be that he only possesses the combat strength of a quasi-king and isn't at the quasi-king realm?" Someone shook his head slightly. "Let's wait and see." The show had just begun, so there was no need to jump out too early. If he was eaten by someone else, he would lose a lot of face. The Golden Crow Celestials all had ugly expressions on their faces. They had been publicly humiliated. How could they not take revenge? Unfortunately, now was not the time to look for him. The time was not ripe yet. Everyone, just as everyone was waiting to watch the show, Ji Chun from the Grand Purity Palace stood up from the table next to Han Fei. Ji Chun said, "There was some misunderstanding just now. However, the 36 immortal palaces are all humans. In this gathering, we should work together as one. It's just a joke, a competition. To us, it's nothing more than sparring and giving pointers. It should be very beneficial." As he spoke, Ji Chun glanced at Huoxian, meaning, "You should be of great benefit. It's better to recognize Shuizhan's strength now than to find out later." Ji Chen's words were gentle and his voice was flat. He didn't seem to be putting on airs, but he casually made it sound like a trivial matter. If Han Fei and the others had lost this round, he probably wouldn't have said that. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. The people from the Grand Purity Palace were all like this. I wonder if the people from the Grand Purity Palace are all so sanctimonious? If they are, then the Grand Purity Palace is indeed the enemy of the Yin-Yang Heaven. Han Fei despised them for their hypocrisy and their hypocrisy. Ji Chun said, "Why don't we reward the sword talismans and drink some enlightenment tea?" This enlightenment tea is collected from the bud of the heavenly fault ancient tree. It's a specialty of the Grand Purity Palace. At this moment, Bingxue Chuling said to Han Fei via voice transmission, in fact, during this period of time, it's also a process for the heavenly talents of the major immortal palaces to get to know each other. Although there are many heavenly talents in the 26 heavens, there are very few who are qualified to become kings. This time, those who have come here are not ordinary people. Han Fei asks, so? Is there going to be a befriending session later? Bingxue Chuling nodded. That's what I'm thinking. But the heavenly talents of different immortal palaces may not treat each other sincerely. Han Fei sneered. I don't need to make friends. Bingxue Chuling thought to herself, what do you mean you don't need to make friends? It's because you attacked the Golden Crow Heaven just now that you've become a thorn in their side. At this time, whoever befriended you would have to bear the risk of offending the Golden Crow Heaven. And offending the Golden Crow Heaven was actually offending the Grand Purity Palace. Everyone knew that the old king of the Golden Crow Heaven had fallen. Since then, the Grand Purity Palace had been supporting them. Therefore, when the people of the Golden Crow Heaven were slapped in the face by Han Fei, the Snow God's palace didn't just offend one of them. Of course, it wasn't that no one dared to compete with the Grand Purity Palace on the surface. At least, the 4 immortal palaces weren't afraid. At the beginning of the banquet, the people of the major immortal palaces knew each other, and no one came to Han Fei to get to know them. Seeing this, a weak, scholarly man cupped his hands at Han Fei. Fellow cultivator Shuizhan, I'm Song Kaiyuan from the Grand Darkness Heaven. Then, Song Kaiyuan said to Han Fei via voice transmission, Brother Shuizhan, you have an extraordinary opportunity. Just now, I sensed a roar in that space, which is very similar to the long-lost secret technique of the Beast King Heaven. Soul-suppressing roar of beasts. Brother Shuizhan must have had an extraordinary opportunity to learn the great techniques of the Beast King Heaven. Han Fei's heart did a flip. Did he recognize me already? His soul-suppressing roar of beasts had been deduced and upgraded. It seemed that the Grand Darkness Heaven really couldn't be underestimated. The saying that it had collected the great techniques of all races in the world was not for nothing. Han Fei replied, I once found an ancient place where there were many remnant souls of beasts. I learned it there. Song Kaiyuan thought to himself, sure enough. Only in this way could Han Fei learn the soul-suppressing roar of beasts. Otherwise, if he needed to hear the roar of hundreds of beasts, wouldn't he have to go to the real Beast King Heaven? Song Kaiyuan from the Grand Darkness Heaven greeted Han Fei. His junior sister also looked like a well-read woman. With a gentle and tranquil face, she saluted Han Fei. Mu Shui Sisi from the Grand Darkness Heaven greets fellow cultivator Shuizhan. The fact that the people of the Grand Darkness Heaven took the lead to make friends with the Snow God's palace immediately attracted a lot of attention. Many people inadvertently glanced at them. The people of the outer 13 heavens smiled bitterly. Someone said, sure enough, only the 4 immortal palaces like Taishan and Wuliang have the confidence to challenge the Grand Purity Palace. Someone agreed. It's a pity that we, the outer 13 heavens, have to be careful in the inner area. At the moment when the King Perished Land is about to open, it's not good to make a big enemy for such a trivial matter. Someone from the 10,000 Poison Heaven sighed. I don't envy making friends with Shuizhan, but I envy having the confidence to challenge the immortal palaces of the inner area like the Grand Darkness Heaven. A woman from the 100 Flowers Palace said, I'm afraid the Snow God's palace will have a hard time on this trip to the King Perished Land. Someone from the Golden Crow Heaven said unkindly, the Grand Darkness Heaven has been domineering for a long time. This time, the King Perished Land will make sure they never return. Han Fei heard a lot of voice transmissions. The people of the Grand Purity Palace were really drinking tea, enjoying the scenery, or greeting guests. The Glaze Palace, Wuliang Palace, Sword God Palace, and Taishan Palace had always been on the same side. Therefore, after the people of the Grand Darkness Heaven greeted Han Fei, someone from the Sword God Palace nodded slightly to him. Jian Hui from the Sword God's Palace greets fellow cultivators Snow God's Palace. Han Fei returned the salute. He knew the character of the swordsman, so he didn't dislike Jian Hui. Bingxue Chuling said, Jian Hui's strength is unfathomable. I've only heard that his strongest sword can rival a king. Han Fei's heart did a flip. Sure enough, in the outside world, there are super heavenly talents who can defeat kings. Bingxue Chuling continued, Song Kaiyuan is good at arrays and fighting. He's not as gentle as he looks. Han Fei was enlightened. At this moment, a burly man from the boundless heaven looked at Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling gently. Boundless mercy, I'm Li Kaitian from the boundless heaven. Nice to meet you. Bingxue Chuling said, I don't know this person. I've never seen him before. In the end, a woman from the Glaze heaven formally introduced Han Fei. Fellow cultivator Shuizhan, I'm Lu Ran. That was very satisfying. Han Fei nodded slightly. These four forces met Han Fei one after another. They didn't really care about the Snow God's Palace, but they didn't get along with the Grand Purity Palace. Therefore, they were happy to make friends with someone who was an enemy of the Golden Crow Heaven or the Grand Purity Palace. After a moment, Han Fei was eating spiritual fruits while observing the sword talisman. He thought to himself, just because other people can't see through it doesn't mean my gourd can't. When the message appeared in the demon purification pot, Ji Chun stood up and said, Everyone, I think we've introduced ourselves to each other. Why don't we start the next round now? Updates will be resumed tomorrow, notice. Tomorrow will be resumed at 3 o'clock. Tomorrow will be resumed at 3 o'clock. End of this chapter. Chapter 1748. Han Fei looked at Bingxue Chuling in confusion, wondering, what's next? Bingxue Chuling was also surprised. I thought it would be tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Who knew that it would be today? Seeing Han Fei's confusion, Bingxue Chuling said, It's said that the 36 Black Heavens have gathered in the Grand Purity Palace. Those who hate each other will have a chance to fight each other. Because in the land of the King Grave, the mermaids, the 100 demons, the sea humans, and many other hostile forces will force human beings to forget their grudges and work together to survive in the land of the King Grave. Han Fei sneered in his heart. So, they're giving us a chance to fight each other here? Bingxue Chuling said, I'm afraid that some kings are watching in secret. I don't think they'll let anyone really get hurt here. Han Fei didn't believe that a fight could make up for the grudges. That was just a verbal excuse. Their real purpose was probably to see the abilities of the heavenly talents of the immortal palaces. Bingxue Chuling said, You don't have to do too much. It's not good to expose too much. Han Fei was about to nod, when the old turtle suddenly said in his heart, I didn't sense any king's gaze at all. Huh! Han Fei's eyes turned cold. There must be a trap. Han Fei said to Bingxue Chuling, If something happens later, you can do your best. Perhaps this battle has been brought forward as a ploy. Bingxue Chuling was briefly stunned. After a moment of silence, she said, Got it. Ji Chun smiled and said, Everyone, we'll have to go to the land of the King Grave in 2 days. Every time we enter the land of the King Grave, we'll run into great enemies like the mermaids. They have the advantage in numbers, so we have to stick together. Whatever grudges we have, let's fight in today's battle. From now on, we must fight the sea demons together on the trip to the land of the King Grave. The people of the immortal palaces seemed to have known that. So, they didn't react to Ji Chen's proposal. Ji Chen said, Because we don't want to hurt each other, there's no need to hide this battle. It's on the heavenly fault ancient tree. As for the reward for this spar, it's better than last time. It's a heavenly fault star fruit. Hiss, some people were surprised. The Supreme Purity Palace is really willing to pay a heavy price. The heavenly fault star fruit would bear fruit once every 300 years. Each time, there would only be one. It contained the essence of the Tao within, and it could help one comprehend and break through. It could also quickly recover from physical injuries, and it could even be used as a supreme treasure to resist heavenly tribulation. Since they even took out such a treasure, it could be seen that the Sky Palace was extremely wealthy. Han Fei glanced at Ice and Snow. Is it very valuable? Bingxue Chailing did not know whether to laugh or cry. It's worth it, isn't it? This fruit was indeed rare. However, I'm afraid it won't be easy to obtain it. Han Fei smiled. What's not simple about it? Ji Chen said, we're all quite strong, and we're not fighting in the void. Then, the Heaven Fault Ancient Tree would be the battlefield. Whoever reached the top first would be the winner. Of course, in order to not harm the harmony, there are naturally restrictions. Everyone is not allowed to damage even half a leaf of the ancient Heavenly Fault Tree, otherwise it will be considered as your loss, and you are not allowed to attack again. Han Fei said lightly, this is just a treasure hunt. How can it be considered a competition? Ice and Snow said, how can it be so simple? On the Golden Crow Heaven side, 6 people stood up in a row. The person who led them chuckled and said, Goddess Chuling, fellow cultivator Snow battle, please. Ice and Snow said, those who have grudges against each other can find opponents here. 2 or more parties climb at the same time. Not everyone soars into the sky to grab the treasure. You have to defeat your opponent first before you can continue to climb to the top. Han Fei rolled his eyes. Then you'll have grudges against each other, won't you? Ice and Snow said, for the immortal palaces that have no grudges against each other, this is simply a competition for treasures. There will be winners and losers, and there will be no personal grudges. But if there are grudges against each other, they will also represent the interests of their respective immortal palaces, so they won't easily let their opponents win. Han Fei glanced at the Golden Crow Heaven. 2 against 6. It's not worth it. Ice and Snow said, they can only send 2 people. Han Fei said with a smile, that's not bad. Let's have a try. The Heavenly Fault Tree was 300,000 meters high. When the so-called sparring began, every leaf on the Heaven Fault Ancient Tree actually began to light up. Under the terrifying gravity, everyone seemed to be carrying a mountain on their shoulders. Under such gravity, did they need to climb to the top of the Heavenly Fault Tree? First of all, they had to control their strength. Of course, for the heavenly talents of the immortal palaces, it was just a basic skill, and no one thought it was inappropriate. Han Fei felt the pressure on his body. Under such conditions, his strength would be suppressed by about 50%. If even he was suppressed by nearly 50%, the others would be even worse. Ice and Snow said, we are still on the ground. When we start to climb, the gravity will be different for every meter we climb. So, we need to adjust our strength control in time. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. Interesting. You mean, the higher we go, the more difficult it will be. In the end, our strength may be suppressed to less than 10%? Ice and Snow nodded. To be precise, when we reach a height of 100,000 meters, our strength will only be 10% or 20% of our peak state. Any higher and it will be more difficult. When the Golden Crow Heaven selected 2 people, Han Fei saw that one of them was the one who had been sitting in the front seat. Ice and Snow seemed to have seen it coming and said telepathically, these 2 are both candidates for the king of the Golden Crow Heaven. The thinner one is called Xia Hai. His spiritual beast is a fire cloud whale. It is said that he is the most likely candidate to become a king. His weapon is the green fire ruler, a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, which has been tempered by the spiritual fire of heaven and earth. The other one is called Tian Ning. His spiritual beast is a lava tortoise, which has amazing defensive power. He has an indestructible fire body, which is also a defensive power. Xia Hai said lightly, I don't care how Jin Quan died. However, the Snow God's palace is too disrespectful to the Golden Crow Heaven. This time we can put an end to it. Holy girl, what do you think? Ice and Snow said, fellow cultivator Xia Hai, it's time to put an end to the Golden Crow Heaven and the Snow God's palace. After this, we have nothing to do with each other. Nothing to do with each other? That's easy for you to say. I wonder where you get the confidence to say that. Han Fei clasped his hands behind his back and looked up. You talk too much. When do we start? Xia Hai and Tian Ning both looked at Han Fei with unfriendly faces. Not long after Han Fei finished speaking, Ji Chen said, Everyone, with Yi Luo as the messenger, I hereby announce the start of the Battle of Inheritance. The leaves moved with the wind, and the disciples of the palaces under the tree all found their opponents. When the nearest leaf broke with a cracking sound, the chosen leaped up, as if the gravity on their bodies wasn't gravity at all. Wow! Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling also stepped into the air. Tian Hing seemed to have been prepared. Instead of chasing after them, his first step was to reach out and touch Han Fei's ice mask. The mysterious thing about Saint Xuezhan was the mask on his face. If the mask was broken, Xuezhan would definitely lose face. But how could Han Fei let him do that? In terms of reaction speed, Han Fei was even faster. He leaned back, tilted his head slightly, and waved his hand, activating the close distance technique. Smack! A slap directly hit Tian Hing's face. The scene, and the instant surprise, many venerables were dumbfounded. Hiss! A woman from the glazed sky took a deep breath and said, Is Tian Hing stupid? Xuezhan just showed the power of space. How dare he try to lift his mask at the beginning? Isn't he looking for trouble? Someone next door said, Tian Hing is a half-king, and Saint Xuezhan is only a peak-level venerable. However, in terms of endurance, speed, and reaction speed, he has surpassed Tian Hing. This can only mean that either Xuezhan's current realm is fake, or he has the ability to fight across realms. Someone chuckled. A peak-level venerable? It's impossible. It's said that Xuezhan once killed a half-king in a few seconds. At that time, Han Fei from the Avengers said that there was a demi-king realm cultivator in the snow battle. Now he's hiding it because he wants to use it in the king grave. Tian Hing didn't catch Han Fei's mask but was slapped in the face. How could he bear it? Because in this competition, not even a leaf could be damaged. Han Fei didn't use much strength at all. But the sound was very crisp, which was a great slap to the face of the golden crow heaven. Xia Hai snorted. Idiot, where is your shield? Tian Hing couldn't say it out loud. In fact, I have an invisible shield. However, Xuezhan just used the power of space. This guy passed the invisible shield and slapped me in the face. Tian Hing gritted his teeth and soared into the sky with a swish. He swore that today, not only would he drag Han Fei down, but he would also kill Xuezhan in the king grave one day. Ring of Fire, Heavenly Shield. Chilla. At this moment, most people were still in the air and hadn't even reached the first branch, including Han Fei. Above Han Fei's head, a ring of fire with a diameter of 100 meters appeared, and there seemed to be a formation blocking the way. If Han Fei rushed forward, of course, he could break through the ring of fire, but the power caused would inevitably cause damage. Then Han Fei's figure disappeared with a hum. With a star transposition, he appeared above the ring of fire in the next moment. Han Fei's voice was leisurely. Idiot. Chapter 1749. After all, Han Fei was the holy child of the Snow God's temple, and his status was only below that of the Snow Lady. In other words, Han Fei's real status should be equal to that of the strongest person below the king realm in the Grand Purity Palace. Therefore, in everyone's opinion, it was natural that Tian Hing of the Golden Crow Heaven couldn't stop Han Fei. Although there were inner and outer domains in the 36 Xuantians, it didn't mean that the outer domain was necessarily worse than the inner domain. There were channels and resources on both sides. Even if the quality of the spiritual energy and the environment in the outer domain were a bit poor, they were just lucky, right? Therefore, it was reasonable for Xuezhan to be the holy child. After all, Xuezhan was suddenly released by the Snow Lady for the land of the fallen king, but Xuezhan might be a heavenly talent that the Snow Lady had cultivated for many years. At this moment, Seeing that he couldn't stop Han Fei, Tianheng also quickly chased after him. Compared to Tianheng, Bingxue Chuling of Xia Hai had fought dozens of times. Because she didn't use too much strength, the battle between the two was very subtle. For example, at this moment, Xia Hai gathered a wisp of red fire and pointed it at Bingxue Chuling. Bingxue Chuling naturally wouldn't underestimate it. She skillfully pointed out a snowflake with her fingertip. However, neither the red fire nor the snowflake exploded, but rushed into the two's bodies. As the saying goes, the skilled are bold. Both of them were demi-kings, so they could still bear the energy in their bodies. If it were in the past, Bingxue Chuling might not be willing to do this, because the exchange of yin and yang would only trigger her cold body. She could only slowly absorb the energy of the fire element. But now, Bingxue Chuling had recovered from her serious illness and found all kinds of vitality resources to replenish her vitality. She was no longer the same as before, so Xia Hai couldn't take advantage of her at all. At this moment, high in the sky, two people fell from the tree. The two changed their techniques in midair. One was good at hidden weapons, and the other was bursting with healing light. At first glance, it was obvious that they were the heavenly talents of the Medicine King Heaven and the 10,000 Poison Heaven. Wherever they passed, cracks appeared in the void because of the poison. It could be seen how poisonous the heavenly talents of the 10,000 Poison Heaven were. Just then, before the two touched the ground, they separated, each retreating 100 feet, and then rushed up again. On the other side, sound waves rippled. On the other hand, there was a woman playing the zither in the Brahma heaven. The sound of the zither rustled and occasionally rushed. It was lonely, as if one was in hell. As for the other woman, she held a staff in her hand and was surrounded by colorful clouds. If she wasn't a powerful being from Dreamweaver Sky, who else could she be? The battle had only just begun. Many experts were displaying their abilities. Except for Han Fei, who seemed to be at the peak stage of the Venerable Realm, the others were all at the Half-King Realm. At this moment, the half-step monarchs were using their abilities, yet not a single one of them was struck down. It was clear that these people were all quite strong. Regardless of whether it was the inner or outer regions, the gap between the top experts was never that great. At the highest point, there were already people who rushed to 6,000 zhang. There was a person who actually used a soul blade to snipe at the enemy. Exclamations could be heard from below the tree. Quick, look! Beitang Xian's heavenly mandate soul saber is one of the Wuji Heaven's 4 great techniques. Someone sighed. The dragon subduing celestial realm has been weak for many years. It is said that Song Hongyu failed to slay the dragon and was injured instead. I wonder if his old injuries have healed. Someone shook his head slightly. I'm afraid not. Look, Song Hongyu's mouth is bleeding. Pooh, above the sky, a person fell from the sky and crashed directly to the ground. Under the tree, the person smashed a big pit, but he still looked fierce. At this moment, this person's clothes were torn, revealing the hideous dragon patterns on his body, which were flowing like blood. Humph! This person was Song Hongyu, who had just been hotly discussed. Even though he was defeated at this moment, his soaring energy was still shocking. Someone from the dragon-subduing celestial realm said, Hongyu, your injuries. Song Hongyu slightly raised his hand, waved it casually, and said in a dull voice, It's okay. Although the heavenly mandate soul saber is powerful, it can't seriously injure me. However, Beitang Xian's control is better than mine. He just used a trick. Swish, swish, swish among the branches and leaves of the heavenly fault ancient tree, the lowest one had rushed to 5,000 zhang high. Han Fei didn't sprint. At this moment, he had just reached 6,000 zhang. Han Fei felt that the gravity around him had increased a lot, and his strength had been suppressed to only about 30%. It must be the same for other people. At this moment, Tianheng entangled with fire threads, intending to lock Han Fei. Han Fei originally wanted to use the Infinity Water and Blade Purgatory to tie up these people directly. However, the Infinity Water was the treasure of the shadowless heaven. If he threw it out now, would anyone recognize it? He just casually attacked, and someone from the Taishan heaven recognized it as the 100 Beasts' soul-suppressing roar. If he used the Infinity Water and was recognized again, they would definitely be suspicious of him. With this in mind, Han Fei stretched out his hand and grabbed at the void. The next moment, he directly attacked Tianheng with the 100 Beasts' soul-devouring roar. Cough! Tianheng grunted. Han Fei frowned. This person's soul power was not weak, much stronger than that of Huaxian just now. However, the next moment, Han Fei took out a void crack and slashed it directly on Tianheng. However, the flames wound into the void and actually resisted the void crack. This alone was enough to prove that Tianheng's strength was extraordinary. However, in the next second, 2 dark blue scimitars instantly swept past this person. Puff puff! At that moment, under the heavenly fault ancient tree, everyone couldn't help but be shocked. They saw Tianheng was directly cut into 4 pieces and then slapped down by Han Fei. How could they not know whether Tianheng was strong or not? He was a strong cultivator famous for his defensive power. However, he was directly cut into several pieces and lost. For a strong cultivator in the half-king realm, those who could kill you could destroy your soul and would not give you a chance to be reborn from a drop of blood. The Golden Crow Heaven was even more humiliated this time. Huaxian and the others below even shouted, "How is it possible? Tianheng's physique is extremely strong and his shield is unparalleled. How could he be cut down so easily?" Someone glanced sideways. "It's his double scimitars." Those scimitars seemed to be invisible blades. As soon as this person finished shouting, he saw the dark blue double scimitars submerge into Han Fei's body again. Han Fei rarely used the Blades of Hope. Now, because of the small fight, using other methods was very likely to damage the Heavenly Fault Ancient Tree and cause him to be eliminated. The Blades of Hope could ignore arrays, shields, and the existence of matter. If Tianheng resisted with his soul power just now, he might have been able to resist it. However, Han Fei's previous attacks were already extraordinary. How could Tianheng expect that Han Fei still had a backup plan? Tianheng's defeat was seen by many people. A strong cultivator of the Grand Purity Palace below secretly noted that the holy child Xuezhan carried the nameless double scimitars on his back, which were suspected to be sea-quelling bizarre treasures that could ignore shields and armor. This so-called competition, in a way, was also a way for others to understand you. Han Fei disguised as the holy child and naturally attracted a lot of attention as a newcomer. Now, Han Fei had already shown some of his skills. Xia Hai also saw Han Fei's moves. The Golden Crow Heaven had already lost 2 rounds. If he lost again, it would be a complete defeat. How could he save his face? Xia Hai frowned. The Golden Crow Heaven could be defeated, but not by the Snow God's palace. If he really lost, didn't it mean that the Golden Crow Heaven was not even as good as the Snow God's palace? How could he keep his reputation as the 4th strongest cultivator? Whoop! In the blink of an eye, when Han Fei defeated Tianheng, a large green ruler appeared in Xia Hai's hand. With a swish, flames danced on the ruler's body. Someone exclaimed, "It's the Green Lotus fire. He's even using the heaven and earth spiritual fire. Isn't he afraid of touching the Heavenly Fault Ancient Tree?" The fire was like a snake, and the lines of fire were like silk. Being illuminated by the heaven and earth spiritual fire, Bingxue Chuling's body was immediately covered with frost. However, Bingxue Chuling was also a half-step monarch. Although she had been ambushed in the hurricane before, it was because she had been ambushed by multiple half-step monarchs. At this moment, a red line appeared on Bingxue Chuling's forehead. A blue sea leech formed an ice barrier, blocking the power of the heaven and earth spiritual fire. Someone was surprised. "It's the ice sea leech. Isn't it said that every time Bingxue Chuling uses it, Her injury will be aggravated? Is it worth it to use it in this place? Bingxue Chuling was the goddess of the snow god's palace and represented the snow god's palace. In this kind of competition, she certainly wouldn't be outdone, so the two fought fiercely. Bingxue Chuling also tried to freeze Xia Hai's soul with the power of ice. Unfortunately, Bingxue Chuling had just reached the half-king realm. Although her injury had recovered, she was still weaker than Xia Hai. Ahem, Bingxue Chuling coughed. Xia Hai sneered, and a blue flame appeared in his eyes. The flame devoured the soul and pushed Bingxue Chuling back. Bingxue Chuling's mouth was bleeding, and she felt her soul was being suppressed. Suddenly, the two of them both felt the movement of the void and saw a void blade appear, trying to cut Xia Hai. Xia Hai had been paying attention to Han Fei and Tianheng's defeat. How could he not be on guard at this moment? Of course, Xia Hai didn't want to fight two heavenly talents at the same level. The difference lay in the Tao. Saint Child Shuizhan's means were strange and he couldn't fight fiercely. Ho! With a roar, a blue light flashed between Xia Hai's eyebrows, and he resisted the soul-devouring attack. He sneered. It's fine if you use the same method once or twice, but if you use it again and again, do you think you're invincible in the half-king realm? However, as soon as Xia Hai said this, he suddenly felt his body tighten, only to see that a thread of spiritual energy had gathered in Han Fei's hand. Han Fei sneered. You should have been on guard, so the 100-beast soul-devouring roar was never a unique skill. The next moment, without Han Fei doing anything, an ice hammer broke Xia Hai's body and nailed him to the ground. At this time, Han Fei used a star transposition and appeared next to Xia Hai, who was about to break free from the spiritual energy thread. Smack! It was a loud slap, and everyone who heard it narrowed their eyes. Who would have expected that the Golden Crow Heaven, ranked fourth among the 36 Black Heavens, would be defeated 3 times in a row? For a time, there were many people gloating over the misfortune of others. Chapter 1750. After finishing off the 2 half-monarch elites of the Golden Crow Heaven, Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling arrived at an altitude of 100,000 feet. Han Fei did not help Bingxue Chuling. He decided to save his spirit-gatherer means for the king-perished land. It should be enough for him to reveal it now. At a height of 100,000 feet, Han Fei's strength was compressed to less than 20%. At that moment, 8 people had been eliminated. It could be said to be an extremely small number. The old turtle said, "Such battles are more difficult the higher you go." At a height of 200,000 feet, everyone's strength will probably be reduced to less than 5%. When that time comes, it will be time for the real battle. You have to hold back later. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up under his mask. Half of my strength is at least at the peak of a high-level supremacy. This is without using my great Tao. My great Tao powers are too powerful. If I use them here, I'm afraid I'll scare them. I'm not here to fight. As the saying goes, first come, first serve. Take your time. I'll snatch the item first. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei took advantage of the battle to soar more than 8,000 feet into the air, almost reaching a height of 200,000 feet. This speed was already extremely fast, and it required him to constantly adjust the strength of his body. Now, there were only 8 people who had reached this height, including Han Fei. Of these 8 people, one was Grand Purity Palace's Ji Chen, Sword God Palace's Jian Hui, Glass Heaven's Lu Ran, Immeasurable Heaven's Li Kaitian, Limitless Heaven's Beitang Xian, as well as a towering man and a veiled woman. Han Fei did not need to introduce himself to these 2 people he did not know. He could already hear the discussions below. Someone said, "I never expected the top 8 to appear so quickly. Ji Chen's opponent is definitely Jian Hui. Immeasurable Heaven's Li Kaitian and Limitless Heaven's Beitang Xian are opponent. Glass Heaven's Lu Ran and Dreamweaver Heaven's Nangong Yu are hard to predict. As for the remaining, Snow God Palace's Shuizhan is considered a dark horse, but he's probably in trouble if he encounters Chaos Heaven's Wu Hao. Someone said with a smile, I have some objections. If he were to encounter Wu Hao outside, there's no way he'll be his match. But in the battle for the heavenly fault tree, it's a battle of the most minute means. Wu Hao's attacks are too ruthless, and his strength is too great. If he can't hold back, he will be eliminated. Someone else said, that Shuizhan is also quite extraordinary. First it was Huixian, then it was Tianheng, and then Xia Hai. The three great king-level candidates of the Golden Crow Heaven were all dragged down by him alone. With such methods, no wonder he dared to be so domineering today. He also has confidence. As the crowd discussed, Han Fei learned that his opponent's name was Wu Hao. He came from the Chaos Heavens, ranked second among the 36 immortal palaces. According to what Han Fei knew, the Chaos Heavens and the Grand Pure Palace were not birds of a feather. The primal Chaos Immortal Palace was full of talented people. They stood firmly in the second place of the 36 profound heavens. Even the limitless heavens had to give up their position obediently because of their strength. At this moment, Wu Hao looked at Han Fei too. Originally, the two of them had not interacted before, and Wu Hao did not expect the mysterious man from the Snow God Palace to come. However, since he was already here, Wu Hao naturally wouldn't show any mercy. However, Wu Hao didn't continue fighting. He raised his head and looked at the sky. Han Fei immediately understood what Wu Hao meant. I'll wait for you there. Han Fei thought to himself that Wu Hao was very shrewd. Han Fei could tell at a glance that he had an extremely strong physique. And in the heavenly fault tree's array, the higher one climbed, the greater the pressure. It made it harder to use one's strength, and physique became the key to victory. Unfortunately, Wu Hao had such thoughts, but he did not know that Han Fei had the same thoughts. Han Fei thought that it was no secret that he was a body-tempering cultivator, nor was there anything worth hiding. Therefore, the two of them soared into the sky with a swoosh, passing everyone else and rushing to a height of 200,000 feet. At the same time, Ji Chun, Jian Hui, and company took a glance as they fought and climbed. However, when they saw that Han Fei's opponent was Wu Hao, they heaved a sigh of relief. Wu Hao's strength was in no way weaker than theirs. If they were to really fight, they might not even be able to beat him. Shuizhan might have some combat strength, but he was still lacking when facing Wu Hao. They saw through Wu Hao's purpose of climbing to a height of 200,000 feet. That was the fighting style of the body-tempering cultivator. However, what they didn't expect was that Han Fei followed them without hesitation and jumped up. Under the tree, someone sneered. I'm afraid that Shuizhan doesn't know the horror of the body-tempering cultivator. Wu Hao is half a king through body-tempering. His strength is so strong that few people in the same realm can defeat him. Someone shook his head slightly. After all, Saint Child Shuizhan has just entered the secular world and hasn't experienced the brutal beating of the strong. After this battle, he will understand a lot. However, at a height of 200,000 feet, when Han Fei arrived, he saw Wu Hao rushing at him with a close-range combat method. Judging from Wu Hao's attack, Han Fei knew that this person's strength was just right, and the direction of the force was carefully considered, so it was difficult to damage the tree. However, at the moment when Wu Hao approached, Han Fei's snow-white cloak flew up. Under the cloak, Han Fei and Wu Hao exchanged more than 100 blows in an instant. Almost in an instant, there was no sound under the tree. Even at a height of 200,000 feet, the two of them only had 1 or 2% of their combat power left. However, for the body-tempering cultivators, they were the most powerful people in this kind of environment. Facing Wu Hao, Han Fei didn't retreat at all. It meant that Han Fei was also a body-tempering cultivator. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen close-range combat. Bam, 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 he could only see power bursting forth from his fist. When it landed on his opponent's body, the power was absorbed by his opponent. Therefore, Han Fei and Wu Hao were at a stalemate for a while, and neither of them could defeat the other. Huh! Wu Hao was surprised. He didn't expect Han Fei to be so strong. There was also a body-tempering cultivator in the snow god's temple? Besides, the power that Han Fei burst out was almost as terrifying as his own. Han Fei was also surprised. This guy's strength was so strong. Although he didn't use his full strength because he didn't want to make his power unstable, a casual punch was close to 10,000 waves. Logically speaking, no one would be able to withstand this attack. After all, power was pure power. After it burst forth, it would not be suppressed by the pressure, realm, speed, and so on. Therefore, it would not have much of a suppression effect on power. Wu Hao said in surprise, "You've already refined a golden body?" Han Fei was also surprised. Wu Hao was in a similar situation as him. He was also refining his golden body. However, his golden body wasn't completed yet. Immediately, Han Fei understood. He said, "You're walking on the great path of strength." Both of them pretended to be shocked, but Wu Hao was really shocked. This guy didn't walk on the great path of strength, but he could still match him in strength. This could only mean one thing: the other party had refined a golden body. Having refined a golden body when he was only at the venerable realm, it almost guaranteed that Han Fei would be invincible. At this moment, Wu Hao knew that the other party was probably the trump card of the Snow God's temple. It was the first time that Han Fei had met such a powerful opponent. Although the half-king he met in the ball cage was also walking on the great path of strength, his physique wasn't very strong. This guy was walking on a very similar path to Han Fei. Although this guy was only comparable to Han Fei because he was walking on the great path of strength, it meant that Han Fei still had room for improvement. After about 10 minutes, Ji Chun and the others had already surpassed Han Fei and Wu Hao, and the two of them were still fighting each other. But Wu Hao knew that the energy in his body was being consumed too fast. "I can't go on like this," and Han Fei had already extended the void lines to the top of the tree. On the top of the tree, there was a stone platform made of floating stones, on which a spiritual fruit with white skin and purple spots was placed. Han Fei could even snatch the heavenly fault star fruit now. But he didn't want to expose the void lines. And theoretically, he had to defeat Wu Hao in order to continue climbing up. Han Fei wanted to win, but he couldn't exert his full strength. If he could easily defeat someone like Wu Hao, he would probably be taken care of even if he entered the land of the Kinggrave. Therefore, Han Fei suddenly stopped and took 3 punches from Wu Hao in the face. With a swish, he teleported to the sky with the star's transposition. Wu Hao thought Han Fei was going to run and was about to chase him, when he found that the space suddenly changed. His body was sent thousands of meters away and hit a leaf. In order to adjust his strength, Wu Hao used too much force and broke a leaf. At this point, Han Fei smiled and flew to the sky. Swish, swish, not good. At that moment, Ji Chun, Jian Hui, Beitang Xian and the others all changed their expressions. They didn't expect that Wu Hao couldn't stop this saint-child Shuizhan. Wu Hao was speechless. It was rare for him to meet such a strong opponent. He was having a good time, but he was suddenly played by someone. How annoying! The others followed and saw that Ji Chun and Jian Hui almost turned into 2 sword shadows and rushed at Han Fei. Han Fei sneered and also jumped out. In terms of speed, Han Fei didn't think he was inferior to anyone. Even if a king came, he could still run for a while. Therefore, when no one stopped him, Ji Chun, Jian and Han Fei took the lead to reach the top under everyone's dumbfounded gazes. Han Fei grabbed the heavenly fault star fruit. Behind Han Fei, 3 figures chased after him. Han Fei grinned and flipped his hand, putting the heavenly fault star fruit into Forge the Universe. On Han Fei's fist, power surged. This punch, with violent power, blasted at Ji Chun and Jian Hui. Han Fei said, "You underestimate your enemy." Chapter 1751. Han Fei had gotten the heavenly fault star fruit, which meant that the competition was over. Han Fei said that they had underestimated him because they all thought that Wu Hao could stop him and wouldn't give him a chance to move forward. However, Han Fei knew very well the characteristics of body tempering expert. When they fought to their heart's content, they might not be able to control their strength freely. Just now, it seemed that he took 3 punches, but in fact, it was because his aura surged and his punches were stronger than the last that Wu Hao was careless. Seeing that Han Fei punched with all his strength and didn't care about the heavenly fault ancient tree at all, Ji Chen was about to charge at him, but he immediately became a guardian of the heavenly fault ancient tree. At this moment, Ji Chen's sword cut through the void, opened a crack in the void, and drew Han Fei's fist mark into the void. When it was all over, Ji Chen saw that Han Fei was stepping down with his hands behind his back. As he walked, Han Fei said, "We're all from the 36 divine palaces. None of us is much stronger than the other. If you take the snow god's temple seriously, the heavenly fault star fruit might not be mine today." Everyone saw that Han Fei had already walked down the tree, which had already declared the winner of this competition. Jian Hui silently sheathed his sword, Beiteng Xian took a deep look at Han Fei, and Dream Weaving and the girls of the Glass Palace also looked at Han Fei in shock. Nangong Yu from Dream Sky smiled faintly. Interesting. I was indeed careless. Seeing that Han Fei had already grabbed the spiritual fruit, Wu Hao didn't speak but was surprised that Han Fei had achieved the invincible golden body at this moment. It must be noted that the last tempering of the skull was quite difficult. His current golden body was stuck at the last step, and he couldn't grasp the key point. He didn't understand what was stopping him from making further breakthroughs. When Han Fei landed lightly on the ground, many people had already come down. Han Fei took out the heavenly fault star fruit in an ostentatious manner, which stimulated everyone's eyes. In Han Fei's eyes, information popped up. Name Heavenly Fault Star Fruit Introduction. The Heavenly Fault ancient tree absorbs the essence of heaven and earth all year round and produces a spiritual fruit. Each time there would only be a single pill. It contained Tao Aura essence, able to help one comprehend and break through. It could also quickly recover from physical injuries. It contained abundant energy, a top-grade great medicine. Level of Venerable Level Quality. Superb contains chaos energy 30 strands. Note. After consumption, there is a small chance to activate the power of the bloodline in the body and enhance the power of the bloodline. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled slightly. 30 wisps of chaotic energy. Just for this competition was worth it. 30 strands of chaos chi. If it was an ordinary person, they might even need to absorb it for over 100 years. In the end, it only took a moment for him to pluck it. If there was such a good thing, Han Fei would rather participate in the so-called battle of heavenly talents every day. Bingxue Chuling heaved a long sigh in his heart, as expected of an expert like the master of the immortal palace. Perhaps he hadn't even used his true strength, but he had already won. The Snow God's palace should not be at a disadvantage in this trip to the place where King perished with this person in charge. In the absence of the king, Ji Chen was the host. At this moment, Han Fei had won the heavenly fault star fruit. Although he was unwilling, he still had to put on a show. Otherwise, how could the Grand Purity Palace rule the 36 black heavens? Ji Chen said, "Everyone, the winner of this battle has been decided. You should have seen it. Fellow cultivator Shuizhan really has a lot of means. He defeated many strong experts in a row, and in the end, he was even able to defeat Wu Hao. I don't think I need to tell you how strong he is, right?" It wasn't until this moment that everyone realized something was wrong. Even Xia Hai and the others from the Golden Crow Heaven had already discovered the problem. Why was Saint Child Shuizhan so strong? This person was just a member of the Immortal Palace that wasn't ranked high in the outer domain. Even if he was lucky and had a high status, he was still from the outer domain. How could he be so strong? Immediately, someone speculated, If the snow god's palace had the ability to cultivate such a strong disciple, why did they release him now? It was definitely not as simple as exploring the place where King perished. At this time, everyone realized the mystery of the imperial palace exploration after more than 30 years. Yes, Shuizhan must have been hidden for too long. If he wanted to explore the imperial palace, Shuizhan needed more experience. At this time, letting Shuizhan out to participate in the place where King perished was probably just Shuizhan's experience. At the same time, some people wondered, what if Shuizhan is really a peak-level venerable? A peak-level venerable is already strong enough to be close to a demi-king. What will happen if Shuizhan reaches the demi-king level? A series of thoughts appeared in everyone's mind. At this moment, Han Fei was undoubtedly feared by countless people. Of course, Han Fei didn't care. He was thinking, it's meaningless for me to use the heavenly fault star fruit now. I can continue to cultivate the pure mystic body now. Not to mention the rapid progress, I'm about to break through the bottleneck. And I've already experienced the bottleneck of the demi-king level. Once the strength in all aspects converged, my breakthrough is just a matter of time. Now, my bloodline has been improved by more than a little bit. My flesh and blood are tens of thousands of times better than when I was in the cage. At this moment, it's not that my flesh and blood can't keep up, but there is still a gap in the power of my soul. As for the strengthening of his divine soul power, he naturally needed to hunt more. Han Fei licked the corner of his mouth and put away the heavenly fault star fruit. But at this moment, Wu Hao walked towards Han Fei. Wu Hao looked at Ji Chen. Is there anything else? Ji Chen shook his head. Today's meeting is just to get to know each other. I think everyone should already know each other. When we enter the place where the king perished, we should take care of each other. Wu Hao said, Fellow cultivator Shuizhan, would you like to have a chat? Han Fei didn't want to chat with these people. He didn't believe that they would really become friends when they arrived at the place where the king perished. They would still hunt when they were supposed to. They were all heavenly talents and all of them were made to be protagonists. Who would be convinced? So Han Fei nodded slightly. Okay. Then I'll go back to my residence first. Under everyone's gaze, Han Fei and Wu Hao left. They were all body-refining practitioners, so even if they used their butts to think, they would know that these two were most likely studying body-refining. In fact, that was indeed the case. As soon as they entered the courtyard, Chu Hao cupped his fist. Fellow cultivator Shuizhan, I have something to ask you. It may be a bit abrupt. If you don't know how to answer, you don't have to. Han Fei said lightly, You want to ask about the forging of a golden body? Wu Hao nodded. Sure enough, he couldn't hide it from Han Fei. His purpose was too obvious. But to Wu Hao's surprise, Han Fei replied, I can tell you, but what can you give me in exchange? Immediately, a strange light burst out of Wu Hao's eyes and he said, Anything. I can exchange all my wealth for it. Han Fei said leisurely, All your wealth? How much is it? Wu Hao was taken aback for a moment. Does this need to be calculated carefully? Han Fei stretched out his hand. If you forge a golden body, your strength will be further improved. I won't embarrass you. 1,000,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, 20,000 energy fruits, and 10 body refining technique. If you agree to my conditions, I can give you the answer now. Wu Hao nodded. Okay. Han Fei. Han Fei thought that his ears were deceiving him. Damn it, I'm just extorting him, and this guy actually agreed? Isn't it too easy? Wu Hao said, I can give you 1,000,000 spiritual stones and 20,000 energy fruits now. The 10 body refining techniques are not complete for now. I have 4 of them and 6 of them. When we arrive at the place where the king died, I will ask someone to send them to the snow god's temple. Brother Shuizhan, don't worry. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Wow, this thing seems to make money faster than robbing. He only regretted that he didn't ask for more just now. If he asked for more, the other party would definitely give him more. When Wu Hao really took out the resources, Han Fei didn't hide them and casually threw over the experience of tempering a golden body. Han Fei thought that even if Wu Hao had an indestructible golden body, so what? A golden body could only increase his strength by about 20%. With Wu Hao's strength, even if he was 20% stronger, how could he be a match for Han Fei? Besides, it was just a piece of experience which might not necessarily work. Maybe the king was just trying to sharpen his disciples. Han Fei didn't lose anything by selling the experience for so much money. Wu Hao grabbed the jade slip and quickly glanced at it. His eyes grew brighter and brighter. Finally, he thanked Han Fei and went into seclusion in excitement. Han Fei was still thinking about the sword talisman on the heavenly fault ancient tree. Just now, when he had just figured out something, the battle of the 36 mysterious heavens had already begun. When Han Fei appeared at the sword viewing platform again, it was already empty. However, Han Fei didn't care. He sat on the table and drank by himself. In less than half a day, a message flashed in the demon purification pot, and words appeared. Heaven Opening Sword Manual, Ultra Quality. Note: there was once a peerless expert who comprehended for 10,000 years and finally opened the gate of heaven. He created a sword art that can cut open the great Tao and break the void. After cultivating this sword art, one's killing intent is like a sword, and all techniques are like a sword. If one wants to open the sky, one must first find the path of the sword. Once the path of the sword is opened, one will master this art. Drawback: to practice the Heaven Opening Sword Manual, one must first find his own path of the sword. Deduction consumption: 1,000 strands of chaotic energy. Note: the path of the sword is hard to find. One must comprehend it on his own. Chapter 1752. When Han Fei saw this great technique, his heart was chilled. Are you kidding me? It's such a great technique, named Heaven Opening Sword Manual, but I have to find a path of swordsmanship? This thing. I don't practice swordsmanship. How can I know anything about swordsmanship? Although in Han Fei's opinion, using a sword and a knife were almost the same. However, if he really thought about it, sword cultivators had to condense a sword ball, erect a sword heart, and find a path of swordsmanship. It didn't appear in the path of knives. In other words, he did not have a deep understanding of the path of cultivating the saber. But in any case, this heaven-opening sword manual was definitely a great technique. Even if he couldn't use it, hadn't Tang Gu found a path of swordsmanship? He would let him use it. In any case, in Han Fei's opinion, Tang Gu was Tang Gu, and Tang Yen was Tang Yen. Tang Yen had experienced the second incarnation, and he might not become the main body. As for Tang Gu, he might be the main character. As for his own path of swordsmanship, when he was free, he would study swordsmanship. As the saying went, once you understand one, you will understand all. Once he had an epiphany, it might not be difficult for him to embark on the path of swordsmanship. Han Fei comforted himself and returned to the yard. These 2 days Han Fei didn't go out. After all, this was the Grand Purity Palace. If he were to cause a ruckus here, he might be causing trouble for himself again. The land of the King Grave was about to open, and he couldn't stay in the Grand Purity Palace for long. When he came out of the land of the King Grave, he would embark on the road to the glass sky. Everything went smoothly. However, although Han Fei didn't cause trouble, the name of Holy Child Xuezhan had become famous in a small range. In the battle of the Heavenly Imperial Court, this guy who had just appeared actually won first place. His physique was comparable to Wu Hao's, and his means were enough to suppress the Golden Crow Heaven. Although Han Fei hadn't competed with the people of the Grand Purity Palace and the Wuji Heaven, no matter how strong they wouldn't be much better than Wu Hao. Han Fei had a rough idea in his heart. Today, 2 days had passed. It was said that other people went to the auction and the treasure show, but Han Fei didn't attend any of them. When Bingxue Chuling came to call him, Han Fei came out of his cultivation. Bingxue Chuling said, "In another hour, we will gather and go to the land of the King Grave." Han Fei nodded slightly. "That's good. Although this place is good, the people are not good. It's better to leave early." Han Fei thought to himself, "These guys from the Grand Purity Palace have never been beaten by society. If there was a chance, he would teach them a lesson at the place where King Wang died." 2 hours later, a total of 25 big ships appeared at the birth of the heavenly imperial city. Why 25? Naturally, it was because of Jiugong Tian and the future. After Han Fei boarded the ship, he asked in confusion, "The Nine-Palace Heaven has sealed off the Immortal Palace all year round. How did it survive in the inner area?" The Snow Lady replied, "The Nine-Palace Heaven dismissed too many of its citizens." It could be said that many of the people in the 36 mysterious heavens were actually from the Nine-Palace Heavens. After tens of thousands of years, many people were discovered one after another. As a result, the people of the Nine-Palace Heavens never showed their faces and lived cautiously. However, if someone was prepared to attack the Nine-Palace Heaven, it would attract some experts. Furthermore, the Nine Palaces Heaven formation is unparalleled, and the Immortal Palace is so well hidden that no one has been able to find it. Han Fei thought, "That's strange. It seems that old Han has made a lot of preparations." Then the Snow Lady said, "You are in the limelight. You must be careful on this trip. Someone will hunt you." Han Fei licked the corner of his mouth slightly and sneered. "That's exactly what I want." In Secret Realms there were two situations: hunting and being hunted. Han Fei had long been used to it. Whether it was hunting sea demons or human powerhouses, there was no difference in essence. As long as they were his enemies, sea demons should be killed and human beings should be slaughtered. There was no difference. The Snow Lady didn't restrict Han Fei's behavior. Would the Great Escape from 100,000 years ago happen again? It all depended on the last tens of thousands of years. At this time, the Snow God's palace was not afraid of offending other immortal palaces. Everyone wanted to find opportunities in the imperial palace. Others knew what the Snow Lady was thinking, and they had also secretly prepared other means. Therefore, even the kings of the Grand Purity Palace didn't feel much about Han Fei's victory this time. They even thought that it was too early for the Holy Child to fight against the Snow Lady. Some people also thought that since the Snow Lady had begun to make this matter public, it seemed that their side had to play a backup plan. "Let's go." On the big ship of the Grand Purity Palace, a king gave an order, which spread to all the big ships of the immortal palaces. The hulls of the major ships left the port and began to charge. Swish, swish, swish. Han Fei looked at the big ships that broke through the void in midair, and thought to himself, "What the F***ck are they if not spaceships?" They were all the mounts of kings, shuttling all the way. Every hour, the big ship teleported about 12 times, about 8 million kilometers. More than 10 hours later, Han Fei was lying in his cabin, resting with his eyes closed. Suddenly, Han Fei opened his eyes. On Han Fei's chest, the mermaid's tear that had never lit up was emitting a faint blue light. Han Fei suddenly sat up, his eyes widening. The mermaid's tear is reacting? Is Xia Xiaochan nearby? With a swish, Han Fei appeared on the deck. Just when he was about to scan with his perception, he heard the Snow Lady say, "We're almost at the place of the King Grave." Han Fei frowned and secretly put away the mermaid's tear. Yes, since I sensed Xia Xiaochan here, she must have also participated in the exploration of the place of the King Grave this time. Since Xia Xiaochan was here, it was only a matter of time before he found her. At this moment, Han Fei's heart suddenly began to be excited. There were too many barriers between the Yinyang Heaven and the inner area of the chaotic ocean. But today, he finally came out, and he was no longer a small fry who was only a hanging fisher. Now, he was comparable to a king. On the other side, in an undersea shuttle-shaped divine boat, a girl in a colorful dress with a delicate face was sitting cross-legged and resting. On the girl's shoulder there was a round, dark red, fat starfish with 6 tentacles. It was lying on the ground without moving at all, as if it were sleeping soundly. Huh! Xia Xiaochan instantly woke up. At that moment she seemed to feel an inexplicable touch in her heart, as if something important had appeared. However, as soon as she opened her eyes, the feeling disappeared. Holialu, the big starfish grunted and said, "Are you sleeping too? Why don't we sleep at home? Why do you have to run to such a dangerous place?" "I'm not afraid. I'm just worried about your safety." "Shut up. If you keep eating and sleeping, you'll sleep like a pig." The big starfish immediately scratched its tentacles and said, "That's impossible. How can I be that kind of inferior creature? I'm now a venerable. As long as I make a little progress, I will become an advanced venerable." "Bah! If I hadn't given you so many resources, how could you eat like this? You can't fight, and your defense is not good. After this trip to the place of the king grave, you must break through to the advanced venerable realm. Otherwise, I will leave you in the place of the king grave and let you stay there for 300 years. No. Starfish can't stand that. Unless you send me 10 clam girls to massage starfish every day, I can consider it." Master Hexagon's starfish was stung to the ground like a mass of mucus. It didn't seem to move, but it reappeared on Xia Xiaochan's shoulder in the next second. At this moment there was a knock on the cabin door, and someone outside said, "Princess Mingzhu, we're almost at the place of the king grave. The 2 princes have been waiting for a long time. Tell them to get lost." Xia Xiaochan got up, casually combed her hair with her hands, and tied it with a red ribbon. She stretched out her hands, and 2 black shadows appeared in her hands. Xia Xiaochan was wrapped in a black scale battle suit inch by inch, and soon she was wrapped in it. Benim Xia Xiaochan, who was ready to go, walked out with a knife and saw 2 young men. One was sitting on the chair, playing with pearls, and the other was leaning against the wall, playing with a dagger. Immediately, Xia Xiaochan was furious. She disappeared in a flash, and her knife was like a shadow. Gotcha! A cold light flashed. The pearl in the guy's hand was cut into 2 pieces, and the chair he was sitting on collapsed. Xia Xiaochan pointed her knife at them. "By Muling, Situyuhong, you'd better disappear in front of me. Otherwise I'll chop both of you up." The guy who was playing with the dagger shrugged and said with a smile, "Mingzhu, we're going to the land of death. There are many experts there, and you haven't even entered the half-monarch realm, so how can you not have my protection? As for Situyuhong, he should get lost." Situyuhong, who had dodged Xia Xiaochan's attack, looked unkindly at Bai Muling. "Bai Muling, don't you know what bloodline you have? A mixed blood child of a flood serpent and a mermaid dares to spout nonsense here? Situyuhong, are you courting death?" For a moment the 2 of them were at loggerheads, which made Xia Xiaochan quite annoyed. "All of you, shut up." At this moment, a white-haired merman race elder entered the cabin. She heard the man say, "Princess Mingzhu, this trip is very dangerous. The reason why you're participating is to help you break through to the half-monarch realm. Therefore, if the princess ran away without permission, this old man will make it clear to Dian Wang that being grounded for 100 years is not a joke." Humph. Chapter 1753. Ever since the mermaid's tears moved, Han Fei was no longer in the mood to lie down. He couldn't wait to get to the king grave. 2 hours later, when the fleet sailed into a place where the turbulent sea currents were extremely turbulent, they finally stopped. A group of people had already gathered here. Among them, there were 32 undersea divine boats of the 100 demons and 31 deep-sea ships of the human race. When the human beings arrived, they immediately caught the attention of many kings. The man from the Grand Purity Palace snorted when he saw these people. "I was wondering who it was. Sherpa Huang, only 6 kings came this time. Do you think the 100 demons don't dare to attack us?" Then, he smirked. "Tian Wu, I heard that you even detonated your heavenly centipede staff in the outer sea a few days ago. You've embarrassed the sea tribe. How dare you come to the last Grave King's land today? Standing at the bow of the boat, Han Fei recognized the old man named Tian Wu. It was this guy who had been fighting with the snow girls in the violent hurricanes, but how long had it been? That old guy was here to meddle in the affairs of the King Grave again? The heavenly centipede snorted. Ji Xian, don't gloat. Do you have the guts to yell at Yi Qinglong when he comes? Let's see if you have the gut. Humph. Yi Qinglong is Yi Qinglong, and you are you. Tian Wu, when you're old, you'd better prepare to die in your nest. If you keep showing up, you won't be able to go back. Shi Huang of the 100 Demons sneered. Tian Wu, don't waste your time talking to him. It's just a quarrel. Ji Xian, you only have 18 kings. How many kings do you think the mermaids will send? Swish, swish, swish. As soon as this person finished speaking, he saw one undersea divine boat after another appearing in this sea region through the void transfer technique. When the 8 kings closed in on them, the king of the sea demons finally surpassed the human king. One of the 8 kings of the mermaids stood on the head of a giant serpent. If this serpent was included, there would be a total of 9 monarchs from the merfolk tribe. The man wore an azure robe and held 2 truncheons in his hands. He glanced at Ji Xian and said, I didn't expect you to be the one leading the team in the king burial ground. It looks like Xian Qingzi has really aged. Ji Xian snorted softly. Whether teacher Xian Qing is old or not, you'll naturally know when you see him next time. As for you, Yi Qinglong, I heard that you lost to Chun Huangdian a while ago. It seems that the title of the 3rd king of the mermaids has indeed changed hands. Yi Qinglong raised his eyelids. You can give it a try. For a moment, all sides were at daggers drawn. While the beast kings were challenging each other, Han Fei's eyes were scanning the crowd of mermaids. Until Han Fei saw a familiar figure with a red ribbon on her head and a big starfish on her shoulder appeared in front of him. All of a sudden, Han Fei's heart trembled, and his breathing became slightly rapid. The snow girl couldn't help but glance at Han Fei. What do you think? Han Fei shook his head slightly. I'm just amazed that there are so many foreign experts. The snow girl was speechless. You call this many? If you dare to show your true strength now, I'm afraid that no more than 100 people under the Beast King level would dare to fight you. Han Fei and the others looked at the mermaids. It wasn't surprising at all. It could be said that all the people on the big ships of the 36 Black Heavens were actually looking at the mermaids' camp. Even in the camp of the 36 Black Heavens, someone exclaimed, Look, the mermaids have such a beautiful woman, and she's put away her fins. She looks exactly like a human being. It's impossible to tell her apart. Someone said, No matter how beautiful she is, so what? On the path of cultivation, how can you be charmed by beauty? Besides, she's just a mermaid. Xia Xiaochan had long been used to these looks, so she always ignored them. However, when she glanced at the crowd, she was slightly surprised when she saw Han Fei. She felt that the masked guy's eyes seemed a bit familiar. However, that person's temperament was too cold. Following Xia Xiaochan's gaze behind him, Bai Muling said, This should be the newly born heavenly talent of the Snow God's temple. His name seems to be Saint Child Shuizhan? It's said that he can fight to a draw with an avenger named Han Fei. Haha, I think they're just 2 guys who boast about each other. When Bai Muling said Han Fei's name, Xia Xiaochan's body stiffened slightly, and she couldn't help looking at the boundless sea. In the past few days, she had been extremely grumpy because the name of the avenger, Han Fei, had reached her ears. Xia Xiaochan wasn't quite sure. Who on earth was that avenger? But if it was Han Fei, she was a little suspicious. After all, Han Fei was in the Yin-Yang heaven. She could understand as long as she read the historical materials. However, after learning about the historical materials of the chaotic vast sea, Xia Xiaochan knew that the Yin-Yang heaven had disappeared for 80,000 years. During this long time, Xia Xiaochan had made a lot of inquiries. However, many people said that the Yin-Yang sky had already fallen in the savage abyss a long time ago. The savage abyss was in the outer sea. Although Xia Xiaochan had tried to sneak out several times, she was caught back in the end. Logically speaking, Xia Xiaochan was strong enough now. However, her identity was too special. Even among the mermaids, she rarely showed up. This time, she was only able to come out because Chun Huangyan agreed to it. Otherwise, Xia Xiaochan would still be cultivating in seclusion in the mermaid royal family. At this time, Situ Yuhong said, "This person's strength should be quite good. He has been hidden by the snow god's temple for so many years and released at this critical moment. Only the sea pigs can't figure out the deep meaning behind it. Bai Muling, although he is an enemy, don't underestimate him." Bai Muling snorted. "If you meet this person, you will know that I'm telling the truth when I take him down. Only someone with mediocre strength like you will think so much." When the two of them began to bicker with each other, the hexagon starfish also turned its 6 big eyes in confusion in the direction of Han Fei. The hexagon starfish thought to himself, "Why do I feel that that person's eyes are always glancing at me? Is he going to attack me?" Immediately, the hexagon starfish moved from Xia Xiaochan's right shoulder to her left shoulder with a swish, trying to avoid that person's eyes. Of course, apart from Xia Xiaochan and the other heavenly talents. On another ship, a mermaid was looking in Xia Xiaochan's direction coldly. On the snow god, Bing Shui Chu Ling said, "It seems that this time is more difficult than I thought. The mermaids, the undersea humans, and the 100 demons. As many as 20 well-known experts could be recognized at a glance. Among them, Bai Muling, Situ Yuhong, and Yu Xiaoxiao were the most famous. Bai Li of the 100 demons, Xin Yu, and Xiao Qin of the undersea humans are all the top heavenly talents of their clans. It is said that they are all half-king realm experts with extraordinary strength. They even seem to have sea-quelling bizarre treasures in their hand." Bing Shui Chu Ling said as she watched. However, she had only cultivated for a few hundred years. She didn't know many of them, so she could only tell Han Fei about the few she knew. But now, how could Han Fei listen to her? He didn't care which heavenly talent they were from. He only saw Xia Xiaochan. As for the others, if they dared to stand in his way, he would just kill them. The snow girl didn't explain to the two of them. After all, with Han Fei here, Bing Shui Chu Ling's safety was guaranteed. Besides, it shouldn't be difficult for Han Fei to get the key to the imperial palace. The snow girl said, "In the land where the kings died, there are too many means and traces of battles of the kings. Although tens of thousands of years have passed, some powers are hard to dissipate. The charm of the Great Way will always remain. So, you must be very careful this time. You 4 half-kings will eventually embark on the treasure hunt, but you'd better work in pairs. In this way, you can take care of each other and don't be afraid of any danger." The snow girl's meaning was very clear. She meant that the half-kings and the peak-level venerables would be separated. She asked Han Fei to team up with Bing Shui Chu Ling to protect her. After all, the snow girl's hope was always on Bing Shui Chu Ling. "Hu Wu." After the major forces stayed for a while, Yi Qinglong said, "It seems that no one from the behemoths will come. If so, let's get started." The kings of the major forces nodded. None of them expected that there would be one less enemy in the land where the kings died. Originally, after years of exploration, the resources inside had been getting lesser and lesser. If they continued to explore, the resources that could last for another 10,000 years might be almost all gone. So, this time, the kings all warned, "Don't worry about how many treasures and opportunities you can get from this trip. As long as it's an opportunity, just take it." The snow girl said, "There's no need to search for the ordinary secret realms in the land where the kings died. The powerful opportunities that can still be found can only be found in those dangerous places." As she spoke, the snow girl waved her hand casually, and 24 jade slips appeared in the sky. The snow girl said, "This is the map of the land where the kings died. Not only us, but every family has it." Then, the snow girl said to Han Fei alone, The life and death of the peak-level venerables are determined by fate. If you're not here, you may not be able to save them in time, but don't worry. The previous deal remains the same. The key to the Imperial Palace and Chu Ling's safety are the most important. Han Fei replied, "Since I've promised, I'll keep my promise." At this time, Yi Qinglong of the Merman race, Ji Xian of the Supreme Purity Palace, Tian Ho of the human race of the seabed, and Shi Pahuang of the 100 demon race each took out a large bone that corresponded to the skeletons of each race. The 4 big bones were broken, and their power gathered in the air like swirling gravel. Then, a round cave in the sea of energy appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 1754. The size of the secret realms might be different. However, the way to enter the secret realms was almost the same. All the big secret realms had to be opened by strong masters. If someone opened it without permission, the others wouldn't be happy. In that case, a war might break out. The land of the fallen king was just a slightly larger secret realm. Was it dangerous? Let's not talk about it for now. Maybe because there were too many dangerous places in this small world, they weren't teleported randomly when they entered the secret realm. When Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling led a group of 24 peak-level venerables into this world, Han Fei felt that it was crazy. The seawater here was freezing, the air of death was unbelievably dense, and the spiritual energy here was abundant. All in all, this was a place suitable for the strong to live, but definitely not for the weak. A group of merfolk came in with Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling. However, when the two sides first entered, there was no battle between them. Everyone tacitly turned around and explored the depths of the secret realm. At this moment, everyone took out their jade slips and saw that the peak-level venerables bowed to Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling. "Lord Holy Child, Lady Holy Maiden, we're leaving," Bingxue Chuling said. "Remember, 1 month. You only have 1 month. You must go back in 1 month. Otherwise, if you stay here and no king opens the channel, you'll most likely die. I've never heard of anyone cultivating here for 100 years. Not a single person has done so for tens of thousands of years. You should know what this means." "Got it." Everyone responded one after another, and with a swoosh they dispersed just like that, like streaks of light and shadows, scattering in all directions. After all of them were at the peak of the exalted realm at the very least. Since they'd arrived at the peak of the exalted realm, none of them were ordinary. Most of these people also believed that opportunities had to be fought for by themselves. That was a rule. They had fought their way through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. There was no reason for them to run away, right? On the other side, the merfolk did the same thing as the Snow God's palace. Han Fei and another member of the Undersea clan accidentally looked at each other. There were still 5 half-king level venerables on the other side, but they didn't attack. Obviously, they had the same reaction as the Snow God's palace. Everyone came here to hunt for treasures and the key to the Imperial Palace. Fighting and killing before seeing the key and treasures? This made no sense at all. The chaotic Azure Sea was different from small places like Yin Yang Heaven and Waterwood Heaven. The territory of an immortal palace was only so big. When one's strength rose to a certain level, it was inevitable that they would run into each other frequently, and naturally, there would be no lack of killing. Thus, for a long time, in small places like the Yin Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven, the enmity between them deepened as they fought. That's all. I'm going to play with you. However, in the chaotic Azure Sea, humans had many enemies, but humans did not weaken. The sea demons couldn't eat the immortal palace, not even the pirate. After all, pirates also had strength and were extremely rampant. Therefore, although humans and sea demons were enemies, in the chaotic Azure Sea, when they met, they would have to fight and compete for treasures. Only then would they become great enemies. As for the perennial wars, there were none. Affected by the various terrifying dangers of the chaotic sea region, the number of people who died at sea every year, or even every day, was much more than those who died in wars. When only the 4 of them were left, Bingxue Chuling said to the 2 demi-kings, Chu Yang, Qin Yu, you 2 go together. Remember, your life is the most important thing. Your life is more important than the key to the imperial palace, understand? The 2 nodded slightly. Understood. Don't worry, Holy Virgin. We know what we're doing. Han Fei's arrangement was actually very fast. As soon as the 2 demi-kings left, more people came in one after another. Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling looked at each other and decided to find a place to leave first. And Han Fei didn't want to start fighting prematurely. Even if these people were not poor, they certainly didn't have the key to the imperial palace. He didn't care about it at all. Swish, swish, the 2 flew away. After flying for more than 200,000 kilometers, they came to a sea of flowers with more than 30 kinds of flowers. Han Fei glanced around and couldn't help but ask, is this thing related to the 100 Flowers Palace? Bingxue Chuling shook her head slightly. I'm not sure about that. According to the highest 5-star difficulty recorded on the Jade Slip, this place is only 2-star. Also, there's a warning about the sword intent. Without hesitation, Han Fei directly fused with Little Black and Little White. In order to hide their identities from the Yin-Yang heaven, the 2 of them hadn't come out for a long time. At this moment, when Han Fei looked with the Yin-Yang divine eyes, he immediately found something wrong. To Han Fei's surprise, a large amount of power in this sea of flowers was gathering in one place. Han Fei walked more than 600 kilometers in one step and found the source of this sea of flowers. In the middle of the thousands of flowers, there was a palm-sized red flower. Han Fei didn't pay much attention to it. He just felt that this flower was a bit unusual. Han Fei reached out and scooped, and a tremendous amount of grass and leaves suddenly soared up. There were hundreds of millions of them. Swish, swish, swish. Han Fei's casual scooping poked the billions of sword chi that suddenly soared into the sky. Seeing this scene, Han Fei stomped his foot, and arrays appeared under his feet. The coiled turtle array instantly protected Bingxue Chuling. In Han Fei's eyes, information popped up. Name: Sword Grass. Introduction: an exotic demonic plant born after being instilled with a large amount of sword chi and vitality. Where the sword grass grows, it will actively hunt all the creatures that pass by it to provide nutrients for itself. The center of the sword grass will produce sword fruits, which can be taken to comprehend sword intent. Level 85 contains chaotic energy greater than 12 wisps, effect, armor penetration, infinite collectible sword fruit absorbable. Han Fei was slightly taken aback. It was indeed the king grave that hadn't been opened for 100 years. Even this 2-star difficulty could provide 12 wisps of chaotic energy and produce spiritual fruits like the sword fruit. That was really rare. Han Fei flicked his fingers, and the infinity water floated out. In an instant, thousands of knives swept across. Han Fei landed in the middle of the meadow openly, letting the sword grasses bombard him. Bingxue Chuling didn't know what to say when she saw this scene. Although these grass and leaves weren't that powerful, there were a lot of them. Such a tremendous amount of sword chi bombarded her body, and she didn't feel good at all. But Han Fei was plucking the grass with his bare hands. The moment Han Fei stretched out his hand, he saw the little flower burrow into the ground, as if it wanted to escape. However, Han Fei wouldn't let a flower run away. The void lines had long been prepared. The moment the little flower retreated, it was caught by Han Fei. Han Fei waved his hand, and a plant creature that looked like a big pen drilled out of the ground. On the root of this creature, there was a sword-shaped spiritual fruit, about the size of a finger. Han Fei pulled the sword fruit down without hesitation, and the chaotic energy in the big radish was being swallowed by Han Fei. Bingxue Chuling said, "This must be a sword grass. I've heard people from the 100 Flowers Palace mention it, but I've never seen it. So this is what it looks like." Holding the big radish, Han Fei said, "It's just a 2-star difficulty. This radish, well, the power of this grass has reached the intermediate venerable level. The 3-star difficulty should correspond to the level of the peak level advanced venerable. The 4-star difficulty should at least correspond to the peak level venerable. Excluding the dangerous places below 4-star on the map, there are a total of. Bingxue Chuling immediately answered, there are 102. Han Fei frowned and said, that's still too many. They are all peak level venerables. If we're here for the 4-star dangerous places, there's no need for us to come here at all. So, exclude the 4-star dangerous places too. This time, before Bingxue Chuling said anything, Han Fei got the result at a glance. 12. Han Fei said, it seems that the opportunities we're looking for are also in these 12 5-star dangerous places. Hey wait, what's the meaning of the black place on the map? There are 3 on the map. Bingxue Chuling said, this is a dangerous place. I once heard from my senior brothers that the land of the king perished is a dangerous place that is difficult to pass through, and only a slim chance of survival. Han Fei sneered. What's so difficult about it? You think it's difficult here? Do you want to go to the imperial palace in the future? Isn't that courting death? Bingxue Chuling frowned slightly. Are we going to the dangerous place directly? Han Fei pondered for a moment and suddenly said, wait a minute. Another clone appeared next to Han Fei. Han Fei took off the mask on his face, pressed it on the clone's face, and smiled. I'll send a semi-king projection to follow you to the 5-star dangerous place. Bingxue Chuling asked in surprise, where are you going? Han Fei said, I have my own things to do. Don't worry. If everything goes well, you'll know. One of Han Fei's projections was already a semi-king. Bingxue Chuling felt that this semi-king projection should be able to easily kill a semi-king. This projection and Han Fei didn't seem to be any different for the time being. Bingxue Chuling more or less knew what Han Fei and the Snow Girl talked about. She knew that Han Fei was not a stingy person. Since he said he had something to do, he really had something to do. Besides, there were only 12 5-star dangerous places and only 3 dangerous places. A month was enough for Han Fei to visit them many times. It was impossible for Han Fei to never return. Han Fei stepped into the void and left. In his hand, the nautical panorama pointed in one direction. Han Fei murmured, treasure hunting is not as important as a wife. Chapter 1755. The reason why Han Fei and Bingxue and Chu Ling chose a random dangerous place to explore was to avoid encountering a large group of people at the beginning. At that time, if there was a conflict, should he fight or not? If he fought them, he wouldn't get any benefits except some ultra-quality spiritual stones and spiritual fruit. Should he fight them or not? That was the contradiction. For Han Fei, the hatred between humans and sea demons didn't matter. In fact, he didn't care about it at all. So what if they were humans? So what if they were sea demons? Besides, the bloodline of the mermaid clan shouldn't be low. Why should he care about it? At the beginning of the battle, Han Fei was already prepared. How should he recognize her? Appear out of thin air and step on colorful auspicious clouds? Punch the sea demon and take Xia Shaochan away by force? Catch her off guard and give her a surprise? After all, they had just entered the King Graveland and it covered a huge area. It was nearly 8 million kilometers wide, which was equivalent to the territory of the Yin-Yang heaven. Therefore, it would take some time to find someone. However, although the place was large, this was the King Graveland after all. They didn't come here to play, but to hunt for treasures and opportunities, so there were only a few places they had to go. An hour later, Han Fei rushed to a dangerous canyon as fast as lightning. In this dangerous canyon, there was a gravitational force, and there were large knife marks on the cliff of the canyon. As soon as Han Fei entered, he felt the gravitational force. An overwhelming pressure came crashing down. This is just a 2-star dangerous place. It's just some residual aura. How dare you touch me? Han Fei grabbed the void and pulled out a knife. Han Fei grabbed this huge void crack in his hand and swept it across the cliff. The invincible knife intent directly collided with the original knife intent. As for the pressure above his head, Han Fei stepped on the seabed and punched the ground. In an instant, dust flew up, and the gravitational force in this space was instantly shattered by Han Fei. After Han Fei came to this dangerous place, he only attacked twice and destroyed the enemy's dangerous place. Before Han Fei, the land of the King Fallen Grave had been opened countless times, but it hadn't collapsed. It could be seen how terrifying Han Fei's destructive power was now. The old turtle said, "You want to find someone? The King Burial Ground would only be open for a month. This is just the beginning. Most of them must be on their way." Han Fei nodded. "I was so happy that I forgot about it." Buzz, with a thought, Little Black and Little White appeared in the canyon. Han Fei said, "Daughter, do you still remember the taste of your mother?" Xiao Bai rolled his eyes. "I remember. I can smell it." Han Fei was overjoyed. "Come on, take Dad there." But Xiao Bai suddenly turned around. He only saw it quickly swim to a place 30 miles away. Dust was flying and the ground was cracked by Han Fei's punch. Little White wandered around the crack and then looked at Han Fei. "Row row, there's something." Han Fei was slightly surprised. "Something?" He just casually hammered it, how could he get anything out of it? Han Fei immediately thought of the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. This little digging expert was left in the Yin-Yang sky. He wondered how strong it was now. The energy in the corpse breeding ground was extremely abundant. If the nine-tailed mantis shrimp didn't improve by 5 levels when he returned, he would kick them to death. At this moment, Han Fei waved his hand, and the infinity water turned into thousands of blades, directly starting the digging mode. Of course, it looked like a drilling machine rotating downward. After digging for more than 20 miles, he finally dug out a dark stone. Huh! The demon purification pot didn't show any information, but the old turtle said, "This is a piece of black magnetic, which is used to refine sea-quelling bizarre treasures. However, it can only be used to refine low-quality sea-quelling bizarre treasures. It's a good thing here." Han Fei wondered, "Why do I feel that there is a special aura on it? Is there something wrong with this stone?" The old turtle pondered for a moment and said, "I'm afraid this is the key to the Imperial Palace they were talking about." Han Fei's eyelids twitched and he said in astonishment, "Cough, cough, what's this? This brick is the key?" The old turtle said, "If I'm not mistaken, the brick has only been stained with a trace of Tao, and the thing stained with this kind of Tao is the key. So, you felt something was wrong at first sight. This reminds me of one thing." Han Fei asked, "What is it?" The old tortoise said leisurely, "It seems that the true experts, such as the strongest emperor and venerable emperor experts, prefer to use black magnetic stones to build their palaces. The palaces built with them are a symbol of their status. Even kings can't break such palaces." Han Fei was stunned for a long time. "So, you're telling me, I dug for a long time, only to dig out a brick to build a house in the Imperial Palace?" The old turtle nodded. "I'm afraid so." Han Fei was silent for a moment and weighed it. Such a brick-sized piece weighed at least 7,000 or 8,000 kilograms. Casually, Han Fei threw the black magnetic into Forge the Universe and muttered, "Emperors are really extravagant. If I dig an Imperial Palace, how many sea-quelling bizarre treasures will I dig out?" The old turtle, Han Fei subconsciously made a key. At this time, he remembered that Xiao Bai was an expert at treasure hunting. With Xiao Bai, how could he not find the key to the Imperial Palace? Suddenly, in Han Fei's perception, a small team of 100 demons appeared. The reason why it was a miscellaneous army was that in this team of 3, there was a squid, a lobster, and a giant sailfish, all of whom were peak-level venerables. When he saw the 3 of them, Han Fei cursed, "I'm just looking for a wife. How could it be such a coincidence that I ran into her? Forget it. I'd better keep these 3 and set off later. Han Fei didn't realize that this was just the beginning, and everyone's starting point was the same. This place was close to the starting point. Wasn't it normal to be discovered? Han Fei concealed his breath and waited for a moment. Swish, swish, swish. 3 figures appeared in this canyon. When the 3 of them came here, the lobster said, "We're a step late. The dust here is still floating, which means that there were people here just now." The giant sailfish waved its tail and said, "Okay, it's just a 2-star dangerous place. Even if we dig, we may not dig out anything good." Poochie, the giant sailfish, was still talking. Suddenly, a cold light flashed in the air, so fast that he had no time to escape. In the next moment, his head was gone. "Who is it?" "Run," the squid reacted quickly. Black ink instantly dyed the area within 100 kilometers. In the place covered by the black fog, venom was corroding Han Fei's body. Besides, this place was covered by the black fog, and he couldn't see anything. Even Han Fei's speed was much slower. However, at the moment when the squid ran away, Han Fei had already stabbed the big lobster into a skewer. He also released the void lines. Bam! The squid was shocked. He must be a half-king realm expert, a bit like a hunter of the human race. Although the characteristics of the 5 major professions were less and less obvious in the venerable realm, the main abilities of the hunters, such as their instincts of stealth, were still very strong. Who could resist such a sneak attack? The squid dashed through the black fog like a shuttle and appeared 100 kilometers away. He looked back. Seeing that the lobster didn't come out, he knew that the guy was probably doomed. However, just as it tore open the void and was about to escape, it saw a cold light instantly reflected in its eyes from the void. Chilla, after the squid was split into halves, he saw Han Fei slowly descending from the void, murmuring, "My arrival technique can ignore domains. It seems that this technique is much better than I thought." A moment later, when Han Fei walked out of the black fog with 2 blackened corpses, he thought to himself, "What a shame that 2 delicious meals were poisoned." After swallowing the 3 sea demons at the peak level of the venerable realm for more than 10 minutes, Han Fei slowly swam to the depths of the king grave. Half an hour later, Han Fei still hadn't found Xia Shaochan, but he saw a golden skeleton dragging a long knife and turning over bones in front of a skeleton. The one who died was a strong human expert. Han Fei had no impression of this person. But that person was strong and had a small half of the golden bones in his body. Han Fei was surprised to see this scene. A body cultivator was taken care of? Han Fei quickly approached, trying to see what this skeleton was. However, the skeleton suddenly turned around. Immediately afterward, the skeleton slashed at him with a swish, the bone knife in his hand still dripping with blood. Along with this slash, dozens of spatial cracks appeared in the void. Was I tricked? Han Fei was a little surprised. In his perception, he didn't perceive anyone else. At this time, a scarlet gate appeared out of thin air. Among them, a skinny young man sneered and charged out. Beside this man, there were 2 skeletons with half-golden bodies. Seeing this person, Han Fei immediately knew where he came from. The berserk corpse heaven of the 13 heavens of the outer domain. Here, there was also a black-robed man who could open a special space gate. Which family did he belong to? However, no matter which family he came from, that person was also a half-king. However, so what if he was a half-king? The moment these 2 dared to come to Han Fei, they were doomed to die. The 100-beast soul devourer broke out without warning, and Han Fei shouted in a low voice, "How dare a few skeletons come out to embarrass themselves?" BM. Han Fei's strength suddenly rose to an extremely strong level. After 3 consecutive punches, the 3 skeletons exploded with their knives and bones. Not good. The first reaction of the skinny young man and the black-robed man was to run. Damn, where did this immortal come from? The corpses of the peak-level venerable couldn't even resist 1 punch from him? Even his bones were smashed into pieces? This strength could be concluded that he was at least a half-king. But there shouldn't be such a strong half-king, right? Chapter 1756. It had always been Han Fei who ambushed others. Han Fei had rarely been ambushed by others. He didn't know what that scarlet gate was. It could completely conceal the aura of the user. Perhaps this thing could be studied. Seeing that the two of them were about to run, Han Fei certainly wouldn't let them get what they wanted. Han Fei immediately shouted, "Seal this place." As soon as the seal was activated, the blood-red mist collapsed in an instant. While the two of them were shocked, the skinny young man waved his hand and shook out the corpse of a strong master. This time, it was no longer a skeleton, but a real corpse. Information emerged in Han Fei's eyes. Name Blood Demon Introduction. It's made from the corpse of a half-king realm master, nourished by the blood pool, and refined by the fire of evil energy for 800 days. The blood demon is extremely powerful, unconscious, and fearless. As long as there is enough chaotic chi, it can fight endlessly. Level 89 Quality Ultra Quality contains chaotic chi 5 strands. Effect: Inedible collectible corpse, absorbable. Note: when the drought demon's power is exhausted, it will lose its effect. When Han Fei saw the information of the blood demon, he smiled disdainfully. No wonder the berserk corpse heaven could only be in the outer domain. If the people of this immortal palace wanted to be strong, they needed a large number of corpses of strong masters. They also needed chaotic chi as a guide to control the corpses. But the corpses of strong masters and chaotic chi were not easy to get. If they couldn't intercept and kill the opponent, they would waste a lot of resources. At the moment when the blood demon attacked, Han Fei's fist flashed with red light, and he punched out the sacrificing punch. With one punch, the blood demon was blasted 100 kilometers away. Within 1,000 kilometers, the seawater had been surging, and the blade purgatory had been opened. Long dragons of saber chi rushed towards that person. Han Fei held the embroidery needle in his hand, grinned, and hit the man with the Monkey King 3000 strike. BM, BM, BM clang, clang, clang puff. In less than a second, the peak-level venerable of the berserk corpse heaven was directly hammered to death by Han Fei, and the blood demon didn't even have time to save him. A wisp of his soul tried to sneak into the corpse, but it was caught by Han Fei's void lines. The other black-robed man's expression changed drastically. How could he have expected to encounter such a tough opponent? Logically speaking, so long as they didn't encounter more than 2 half-king realm experts, then they wouldn't lose at all. Therefore, they had to hunt from the beginning because they had no intention of fighting for it themselves. Their idea was the same as Han Fei's. They would just grab the fruits of other people's labor. Although no one had found the key to the Arch Palace in the beginning, they couldn't give up just because they met someone who knew that on their second hunt, they would run into a tough nut to crack. Who are you? Han Fei's rod shadows were like waves, overlapping. The black-robed man suddenly lifted his black robe, which turned into boundless death chi. From within the aura of death, a gigantic undead creature made up of countless skeletons emerged. Undying creature, are you from the mysterious underworld sky? At this time, Han Fei didn't hide anymore and fully unleashed his power. On the embroidery needle, golden light shone brightly, and the rod was as heavy as a river and unparalleled. The moment the 100-meter-tall skeletal giant came into contact with the rod's shadows, its entire body started to crack. Crack, crack, crack. In the blink of an eye, the summoning technique of the mysterious underworld sky collapsed. In Han Fei's eyes, he saw a young man solemnly making a gesture with his hands. Death tide. The boundless death chi was gathering. Han Fei was already in the death chi, so he was quickly wrapped up. However, Han Fei directly activated the ancient desolate war body. The death chi entered his body and was instantly purified and expelled. So, the strong man from the mysterious underworld sky saw a figure getting closer and closer in the boundless death chi. Impossible! You don't cultivate the death chi. How can you not be affected? When Han Fei walked out of the Death Chi, a spear shadow pierced through the strong man from the mysterious underworld sky. Then, the void lines caught him. Han Fei said leisurely, "Do you want to know? I won't tell you." After killing the two of them, Han Fei took out 2 Sun Moon shells from them. As for the corpses, Han Fei didn't bother to collect them. With a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. Han Fei said, "Daughter, let's chase. We must catch up with your mama today." Little White grunted and began to swim faster. However, Little White hadn't become a venerable yet, so its speed was still limited. According to the direction Little White was heading, Han Fei checked the map and eliminated the dangerous areas below 5-star. In this direction, there was a 5-star dangerous place. Besides, not far from this dangerous place, it could even be said that in the adjacent place there was also a dangerous place. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Xia Xiaochan's identity was not ordinary. She appeared on the big ship of the Mermaid King, so there should be a strong guard behind her. She definitely wouldn't be interested in ordinary dangerous places. So, Han Fei put away Little Black and Little White and rushed away at full speed. The danger of the land of King Death was not that there were special creatures here. What was dangerous here was these dangerous places. After tens of thousands of years of exploration, most of the dangerous places had been flattened and hollowed out. There were only so many of them left. There were only a few places that were truly dangerous, and the dangerous places that hadn't been cleaned up until now could only mean that they were so dangerous that no one had been able to clean them up for tens of thousands of years. Han Fei could almost conclude that, except for the dangers encountered in the 5-star dangerous places and dangerous places, for peak-level venerables or half-kings, there was almost no chance of death here. The real deaths were mostly caused by the killing and hunting of the various races. After a moment, Han Fei landed at the entrance of an underwater karst cave on the cliff of an abyss. At this time, after Han Fei released Little White immediately said, "Rake, it's dangerous. But Mama seems to be inside." Han Fei grinned. "That's right. Today, even if it's a mountain of daggers or a sea of fire, we'll have a try." Putting away Little Black and Little White again, Han Fei stepped into it without hesitation. Undersea karst caves, also known as undersea caves, were usually full of mysteriousness. In the past, such places would definitely attract many brave adventurers to explore. As soon as Han Fei entered, he saw a green light. In his field of vision, there were stalactites and towering stone forests crawling with green seaweed everywhere. Swish, swish, swish. When Han Fei approached the cave, he saw shadows of swords appearing one after another around him. Those sword shadows, without hitting anyone, turned into weird lines of runes and sank into the nearby stalactites. The old turtle said, "It's a killing array." Han Fei nodded. "I see. I'm just curious. We are not the first to come here, but there seems to be no trace of damage here. Logically speaking, such a killing formation would definitely destroy the environment inside the cave." Just as Han Fei asked this question, a white current jumped out from the depths of the karst cave. Han Fei dodged sideways, only to see this thing explode with a bang, turning into flying catkins all over the sky, as if trying to contaminate Han Fei. A series of arrays appeared under Han Fei's feet, and the Great Plate Turtle Array instantly rose from the ground. Clang, 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 clang. A massive amount of rune sword intent bombarded the Great Plate Turtle Array in an instant. Han Fei shouted in a low voice, "Fuse!" As soon as they fused, Han Fei immediately saw the mystery. Why was there a stalactite forest around? It was a land of broken walls and ruins, and the ground and broken stone pillars were covered with all kinds of green, glowing worms. Shoot! Han Fei didn't feel good at all. He fell into an illusion as soon as he came in. If he hadn't felt something wrong, those worms would have crawled all over his body. And the so-called runic sword chi was actually the attack launched by the insects after they had swallowed the sword will. Humph! Han Fei stretched out his hand, and the infinity water turned into finger-long knives. In an instant, they turned into tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, spinning rapidly in this space. Han Fei stood in the storm of knives and walked all the way forward. Wherever it went, everything, no matter what kind of mess it was twisted into fine powder. After walking more than 10 kilometers into the karst cave, as many as 7 or 8 caves leading to different directions appeared here. Han Fei released his perception, but as soon as he did so, he immediately felt a great numbness. Han Fei said, "The worms here can actually devour perception and hurt the soul." With that, Han Fei hooked out with the void lines. In the blink of an eye, a neon green worm was caught in front of him. In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name: Tao-devouring demon worm. Introduction: an extremely rare ancient worm that can devour the great Tao and imitate the power of the great Tao. The Tao-devouring demon worm has an extremely strong reproductive ability. As long as the great Tao exists, the worm will never die. Level 83 Quality Ancient Mutant contains Sword Intent 1 Wisp Edible Effect Inedible Collectible Uncollectible Absorbable. Remarks: the Tao-devouring demon worm can imitate the power of any great Tao. Hiss! Han Fei couldn't help but gasp after reading it. It was the first time he had seen an ancient mutant worm. More importantly, this worm could imitate the power of any great Tao. Its reproduction speed was so fast that it could be called indestructible. Just how strong was this thing? The old turtle was also surprised. This seems to be an ancient demonic worm, right? Let me tell you, there are few good ancient demonic worms. When there are too many of them, sometimes even the emperors have to avoid them. Han Fei stood on the spot and sensed for a while. With Little White's keen perception, he finally chose a cave and crawled in. Han Fei said, "Then I should be glad that I'm not in the ancient times." Chapter 1757. The danger of a 5-star danger zone was no joke. Countless Tao-devouring demon insects. Only the heavens knew how they managed to grow their strength. But in any case, this place was filled with a lot of sword chi. Because these Tao-devouring demon insects contained wisps of sword chi in their bodies, which could only mean that the great way of sword existed in this cave itself, was very strong. When Han Fei walked less than 50 kilometers from the second cave, a large stalactite forest appeared here. It was no longer an illusion. However, some dark green liquid was always coming out of the sharp tips of these stalactites. And after Han Fei just arrived at this stalactite forest, the 6 spirit armor outside his body was melting almost at a speed visible to the naked eye. It could be seen that the surrounding seawater was full of extremely terrifying corrosiveness. With Han Fei's current strength, no one in the same realm dared to say that they could shatter any array he set up with one blow. However, under the corrosion of the seawater, it couldn't resist at all. Han Fei directly covered his body with a spiritual energy protective cover. This kind of continuous corrosion, of course, had to be accompanied by a continuous defense. For venerables, a spiritual energy protective cover could last for a long time. Therefore, this kind of corrosive solution couldn't hurt Han Fei at all. Not long after walking for about 100 kilometers, Han Fei suddenly discovered that there were traces of a battle here. This battle caused a large area of the nearby cave to collapse, which actually blocked the way. Han Fei sensed for a while and said solemnly, "There is a very strong knife chi that swept through this place. There is also a terrifying fist energy and sword chi. It seems that there has been a big battle here." The old turtle said, "At least a battle of more than 10 people." Han Fei frowned slightly. Han Fei naturally knew that the various clans and forces had sent a lot of half-king realm powerhouses here. He had calculated the purpose of these half-king realm powerhouses with ice snow before. Their purpose was at least a 5-star danger zone. However, there were a total of 12 5-star danger zones. However, only the 36 Xiantian realms had come, and 25 forces had come. Even if there were only 2 forces on average in a danger zone, there were now 3 forces in this danger zone, including Xia Shaochan and the others. If there were the 100 Demons clan and the Seabed Human clan among these forces, they could even make up the 5 major forces. Han Fei's heart sank. If Xia Shaochan and the others encountered the 100 Demons clan or the Undersea Humans, it would be fine. However, if they encountered human experts, a great battle would inevitably break out. The infinity water swirled like a storm and began to dig a passage in a pile of rocks. However, after digging, Han Fei realized that these stones were not ordinary seabed rock. However, when he thought about it, it made sense. If these were normal sea rocks, this so-called 5-star danger zone would have collapsed long ago. It would have been impossible for it to last until now. As far as Han Fei was concerned, the strength of the stones here had reached the point where they could be used to refine high-quality divine weapons or even ultra-quality divine weapons. No wonder it can withstand the vibration of a half-monarch realm expert. The rock itself might not be able to withstand the attack of a half-monarch realm expert. However, it was a mountain, an earth vein, and a cave. Only the heavens knew how thick the outer walls of this cave were. Even if a half-martial monarch could destroy a portion of the mountain, it would be impossible for him to destroy the entire mountain. While digging with the infinity water, Han Fei was collecting these stones and speeding up the excavation. While Han Fei was digging, in the depths of the cave, in a small city that looked like an underground palace, an earth-shattering battle broke out. The 2 sides of the battle were a team of 5 led by Xia Shaochan and a team of 10 human experts. However, upon closer inspection, all 10 of them were wearing the same clothes. Besides, these 10 people were all in the half-monarch realm at this moment. Swish, swish, swish. Xia Shaochan was flashing and weaving. In the underground palace, the shadowless blade was flashing and attacking, and shadows were flowing. There were 3 half-monarch realm experts surrounding Xia Shaochan. Clang, clang, clang. Clang, clang, clang. Xia Shaochan didn't retreat at all just because the other party had more people. As soon as she entered the land of the King Grave, she was targeted. To think that this group of people could actually find him directly. Obviously, the other party's target was her from the beginning. At this time, Xia Shaochan roughly knew who wanted her dead. Therefore, she was extremely angry at this moment, and her pair of daggers moved faster and faster. However, among the people surrounding her, one focused on the Tao of Speed, one focused on the Tao of Soul Attack, and one focused on the Tao of Gravity. If it weren't for Xia Shaochan's unreasonable infinite flash ability and the Shadow Shrimp's shadow power, she would have been defeated at this moment. However, even if she could hold on now, it didn't mean that Xia Shaochan could win. If she only faced one of them, she could exhaust him to death. It was more likely that she would kill him. However, the Tao of these 3 people was clearly targeting her. Fundamentally, they were suppressing her to attack. In order to chop off the head of one of them, Xia Shaochan was crushed by the Tao of Gravity. In an instant, her body became unstable and she was about to flash away. But the extremely fast half-monarch realm expert slapped her in the back. Puff, swish, swish, swish. In the underground palace, more than 30 figures of Xia Shaochan suddenly appeared. This was to buy time to hide her real body. Xia Shaochan squatted on the ground and appeared 3,000 meters away. Next door, Bai Muling roared, "How dare you hurt Her Royal Highness? Today I'll make you die." The one named Bai Muling roared, and with a buzz, he turned into a white-scaled dragon python. With a swing of his giant tail, he sent a half-monarch realm expert flying. But at this moment, a human overlord sneered. "Bai Muling of the Mermaid Royal Family, I've been waiting for you to transform." Swish! A human clan powerhouse sneered and threw out a seal in his hand. The next moment, the true dragon aura burst out. Puff! Bai Muling spat out a mouthful of blood and said in shock, You're from the dragon taming heaven? No, the azure dragon might of the dragon taming heaven isn't so strong. This is bloodline suppression, and it's the dragon might of the sea opening realm? Bai Muling was injured in one move, and the other person next to him was also impacted by the dragon might. But that person wasn't as strong as Bai Muling. The two half-monarch realm overlords attacked with two demon spikes that contained a strange power. One of the two spikes killed the body, and the other killed the soul. The half-monarch realm sea monster was killed in an instant. Situ Yuhong yelled, "No! They're not from the 36 profound heavens. Princess, don't worry about us. Run." Those who protected Xia Shaochan all knew one thing. In a corner of this world, there was an extremely powerful family that wanted Xia Shaochan's life. That was why Xia Shaochan had been forced to cultivate in the mermaid royal family until now. Only by becoming stronger and stronger could he resist the pursuit of those people. But how come there were forces outside the 36 profound heavens in this trip to the land of King Burial? It could only mean one thing. The 36 profound heavens had been infiltrated. Xia Shaochan had figured it out a long time ago. So, the moment Bai Muling was defeated, she shouted, "Fuse!" Roar! At the same time, there was a dragon roar. This time, Xia Shaochan's strength soared a lot in an instant. The people who were hunting Xia Shaochan all changed their expressions at this moment. Someone shouted in a low voice, "It's the giant arowana and the Dao Sound Talisman." Dong, dong, dong. Xia Shaochan's strength had already been improved to the half-monarch realm. However, these people were clearly prepared. As soon as they attacked, earth-shaking bell tolls burst out from the three fish skins. Pooh! Xia Shaochan vomited another mouthful of blood. Her reaction was very fast. The shadowless blades scattered in the sky in the blink of an eye. There seemed to be a shadow on each shadowless blade. Clatter! When the shadow gathered again, everyone saw a pair of beautiful half-colored transparent cicada wings behind Xia Shaochan. Bai Muling and Situ Yuhong both exclaimed, "Heavenly cicada transformation?" But at this moment, Xia Shaochan's eyes turned red. On her shoulder, a big starfish was shivering. "Starfish know that we can't come out. If we come out, we'll be in danger. If we come out, we'll die." "Shut up!" Xia Shaochan spat, and her strength soared several times again. With a swish, a melodious color was left in the sky. The cicada wings swept across the sky, leaving no trace. Immediately afterward, Xia Shaochan's feet stepped on a person's chest. The two knives entered his body and instantly destroyed his body. With a twist of the cicada wings, this person was immediately beheaded. However, the person who was killed was not afraid at all. A lot of green light suddenly burst out of his body. When they took a closer look, they saw a massive tide of swords bursting out of this person's body. In an instant, Xia Shaochan was blown back. The heavenly cicada wings were riddled with scars. In the next moment, 3 people attacked Xia Shaochan again. But suddenly, a scream of fear rang out, 6 gates heaven ceiling. Hum, hum, hum. A purple light rose. Master Hexagon's starfish finally played a role. The 6-gate formation protected Xia Shaochan in it. Situ Yuhong and Bai Muling were being attacked crazily. The two of them were already riddled with scars. This time, the enemy had obviously calculated the strength of the people around Xia Shaochan. At this moment, in the 6-gate formation, Xia Shaochan was riddled with scars and looked at the people outside with hatred. One of them stood in midair and said indifferently, "After all, you haven't become a king and haven't fully inherited the power of the heavenly cicada. The 10 of us have hidden swords in our bodies, waiting for you to display the heavenly cicada transformation, so that you know that the power of the heavenly cicada can't be passed on to outsiders. Today you will die." First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1758. The strength of the mermaids and mermaids was only relative. Xia Shaochan was indeed strong. A peak-level venerable fought against 3 half-king realm experts for a long time and even killed one of them in the end. If these people were just ordinary half-king realm experts, Xia Xiaochan would have a way to escape. With Bai Muling and Situ Yuhong as her bodyguards, it wouldn't be difficult for her to escape. But the point was that these people weren't ordinary half-king realm experts. Every one of them had a hidden sword. Almost all of their methods were targeted. They seemed to have anticipated what Xia Xiaochan would do and how she would react. Now, Bai Muling, Situ Yuhong, and another mermaid half-king realm expert were all entangled. On Xia Xiaochan's side, the 4 of them were bombarding the 6-gate array. One of them sneered. "It's a waste of time. Although the 6-gate array is strong, the hexagon starfish's realm isn't high enough. This array will be broken in 10 seconds. The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes and murmured, "It's over. It's over. It's over. I knew the outside world was dangerous. I knew it when I was only a few years old." Xia Xiaochan snapped, "Shut up." "No, I won't shut up. There's still hope." The hexagon starfish yelled, "Bai Muling, Situ Yuhong, you two are useless. You keep saying how unparalleled you are, but are you really that unparalleled? You can't even defeat 5 of them? Why don't you just kill yourselves?" Situ Yuhong bellowed. The void around him was twisted, and black pearls cracked like black holes. Dumb chaotic energy burst out of Situ Yuhong's body, and his combat ability soared. His will fused with his body and covered himself with a layer of white armor. However, the people opposite them were obviously not to be trifled with. Since they had gone through so much trouble to sneak into the land of death, how could they be unprepared? 3 human cultivators wielded long spears and thrust out 3 spears at the same time. In midair, a triangle was drawn. As soon as the triangle appeared, a triangular mark burst out, blowing Situ Yuhong back dozens of kilometers. His hair was disheveled, and his armor was broken. Pooh! Situ Yuhong's expression was unsightly as he said, "Something is wrong. These people's methods are not the methods of the 36 profound heavens. They are not from the chaotic azure sea." Bai Muling cursed, "Impossible! There was no way out of the chaotic vast sea. If they could come from the outside, they would have come a long time ago. Why wait for this opportunity?" Although the 2 geniuses were severely injured, they had not reached their limits yet. Both of them took out a jade scroll at the same time. Bai Muling shouted, "Bastards, you forced us to use the king's strike. You didn't come here for nothing." Gotcha! Gotcha! When Bai Muling and Situ Yuhong crushed their jade slips, a crab phantom image appeared. After the crab image appeared, its eyes turned cold and it said, "So many human half-step kings?" Clang! The crab hit the gong and the demonic sound reverberated. However, the human on the other side also unleashed an overlord strike. A gigantic hand appeared out of thin air and grabbed at the crab's illusory figure with brute force, crushing it into pieces. In Situ Yuhong's jade slip, a person appeared. The man was none other than Chun Huangdian, whom Han Fei had met before. Chun Huangdian glanced at the situation and roared, "Bai Muling, Situ Yuhong, and that starfish, take the princess away." Someone on the human side roared, "Humph! No one could leave this place even if they wanted to. The unfilial son of the infamily will die even if we chase him to the end of the world." Those people's methods were beyond Xia Xiaochan's imagination. Apart from the trump cards that Bai Muling and Situ Yuhong had, Xia Xiaochan had one last trump card. But it seemed that it couldn't help her escape at all. Chun Huangdian's attack was completely resisted by one of the half-step kings. Of course, the half-step king who resisted the attack was immediately shattered, and a tide of swords burst out of his body and charged at Chun Huangdian. Chun Huangdian pointed his finger and destroyed the overwhelming tide of swords. His shadow was almost transparent. At this moment, a person appeared in midair like an illusion. It was the silhouette of a human sitting on a throne, exuding a majestic aura. The man raised his hand and pressed down, and Chun Huangdian's illusion almost collapsed. The man bellowed, "Vile creature, die already!" The man opened his mouth and roared. Not only was Chun Huangdian's illusion destroyed, but even the hexagon starfish's six-gate array collapsed. The hexagon starfish shrieked, "Throw out your trump card and run!" Xia Xiaochan flapped her wings and was about to crush the jade slip in her hand. On the other side, someone was charging at her aggressively with a spear. The tip of the spear carried a dazzling golden light. All of a sudden, the void was twisted. A ray of saber light illuminated the void and directly shone on the face and body of the person who had attacked. Poochie! Watch out! The human experts all took a defensive stance, looking for the enemy. The body of the person who had just attacked Xia Xiaochan fell apart. Everybody was shocked. Who was it? It was such a fast and powerful attack. Could it be that someone had secretly used the King's Strike? Bam! A lot of rubble was blown away, and a fatty appeared at the entrance of the underground palace. This fatty was exactly Fan Datong, who Han Fei disguised as the Black Ghost. Everybody looked at the newcomer. At that moment, Xia Xiaochan's eyes widened. The hexagon starfish's 6 big eyes looked in the same direction, dumbfounded. Only Bai Muling, Situ Yuhong, and another merman half-king were dumbfounded. The three of them wondered, "Who is this newcomer? Who are you?" The human experts saw that it was a human being and immediately said, "We're all human beings. Did you help the wrong person?" Turtle shell sealing technique. At that moment the surroundings seemed to be sealed. The old turtle sealed this place, and Han Fei didn't intend to let go of any of them. Han Fei said unhurriedly, "Are you blind? How dare you bully my wife?" Bai Muling was dumbfounded and looked around. There seemed to be no other woman here except for the princess. Situ Yuhong was also stunned for a moment, and then his face changed drastically. "How dare you? Princess Mingzhu, you're so arrogant. Don't talk nonsense." The hexagon starfish was shocked, and its 6 tentacles were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Hey! Han, shut up." Han Fei glared at him. "Big starfish, if you say one more word, I'll eat you." The hexagon starfish quickly shut up, but its eyes kept rolling, and it clawed at Xia Xiaochan's clothes desperately. The shock in Xia Xiaochan's eyes hadn't faded yet. At that moment, she felt as if a fishbone was stuck in her throat, and tears flashed in her eyes. However, the human experts uttered a roar, "Stick your nose in someone else's business, and you'll die." However, he saw 3 people using the same trick again. Another triangular rune appeared in midair and pressed at Han Fei. Xia Xiaochan hurriedly exclaimed, "Watch out!" However, Han Fei clenched his fist and punched out with the sacrificing punch. The power of this blow directly blasted the triangular seal into pieces. "What? How is it possible?" Then, a long stick stabbed out with domineering spear power. Almost ignoring time, the spear directly stabbed a half-king stage cultivator into pieces. His body was smashed into pieces, and his body exploded all over the sky. Swish! 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 At that moment, Han Fei reached out and scooped in the air. The infinity water condensed into a knife and slashed at another person again. However, this time, these people realized what was going on. One of them turned into a phantom and a throne descended. In the blur, there seemed to be a middle-aged man slapping at Han Fei. "Humph! What's that? You want to suppress me with a phantom? Do you think I'm too arrogant?" Boom! Han Fei punched at him. With a bang, Han Fei hit the rock wall and smashed half of the underground palace. Xia Xiaochan's face changed drastically, and she suddenly stood up. However, before she could make a move, she saw a figure rushing back at an even faster speed from the ruins. Behind him, thousands of knives were like dragons, roaring and pouncing on him like a primeval beast. Oh! The 100-beast soul-devouring roar burst out, and 2 of them spurted blood from their eyes, ears, noses, and mouths. Han Fei performed a star shift, appeared directly behind one of them, and tore him in half with his hands. Han Fei was full of killing intent. "Is that all you've got? Where are your king's means? Use them all at once." Gulp. Bai Muling and Situ Yuhong looked at each other and swallowed. "Damn, who is this guy? Is he a hidden bodyguard sent by Lord Chun Huangdian?" This strength was a little too terrifying. These half-king stage cultivators were not ordinary half-king stage cultivators. They seemed to have endless king's means in their hands. Otherwise, if these people were just a little bit more ordinary, how could they have been defeated with the addition of Her Highness the Princess, who were all real super-experts? But now, the man in front of them was only at the peak level of the venerable realm, but his strength was so terrifying that he could take a blow from a half-king stage cultivator head-on without being hurt. And he could even fight back in the next second? What kind of beast is he? Just now, they had only managed to kill 2 people after putting in so much effort. However, as soon as this fatty came, he killed 3 people in the blink of an eye. Yes, these 3 people were definitely dead. If they hadn't died, they should have been reborn by now. Unfortunately, they didn't. This meant that they didn't have a chance to be reborn by blood at all. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei strangled him with the infinity water, but it was also defeated by the opponent's king's strike. However, the infinity water turned into waves and dissipated. Han Fei now had the combat power of a king stage cultivator. Fist marks were all over the sky and knife chi was everywhere. In an instant, another person was caught by Han Fei and immediately cut into pieces. The other person blew himself up the moment he was caught by Han Fei. Rumble, Han Fei was blown away again. Although the power of a half-king stage cultivator's self-explosion was also terrifying, it only crushed the surface of the underground palace and blasted Han Fei a few hundred kilometers away. However, Han Fei returned in the blink of an eye with the world's end close. The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes and said, "Oh, my family is trustworthy. But the others are not so good. They're all useless. They're not even as good as starfish." Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1759. Within 10 minutes, Han Fei made a record that even Xia Shaochan was stunned. Of the remaining 8 demi-kings, only 1 was left, and Han Fei's strength could no longer be maintained at the king level, so he finally returned to normal. Seeing this scene, Bai Muling and Situ Yuhong both heaved a long sigh of relief. This person really used some kind of secret method. Otherwise, if he really exerted such a powerful force, they would have begun to doubt their identity as heavenly talents. Xia Shaochan gritted her teeth and joined the battlefield. However, how could Han Fei let Xia Shaochan fight when she was injured? During the battle, Han Fei enveloped Xia Shaochan with the Holy Light technique. Xia Shaochan's injuries were recovering at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Just now, they were fighting and didn't have a chance to fight. Now, there was only one half-king left, so he had to help Xia Shaochan heal. The hexagon starfish said, "Starfish, I'm also injured. I vomited blood just now." Han Fei rolled his eyes. The hexagon starfish used to be quite thin, but now his tentacles were fat and swollen. How good were their lives then? How could he raise a starfish into such a shape? As a matter of fact, Han Fei didn't even attack the last person. He just restrained the half-king. But Xia Shaochan simply burst out and slashed 1,027 times in a breath. Her attack speed was so fast that Han Fei almost didn't see it. The final half-monarch's battle armor had been shattered into pieces. Knowing that he couldn't escape, this person roared, "So what if you kill us? You can't escape after all." Han Fei frowned and said, "Girl, let me do it." After all, they grew up together, so although they hadn't seen each other for a long time, they still called each other affectionately. The word girl made Xia Shaochan blush. Then she pouted and tears welled up in her eyes. But at this moment, Bai Muling and Situ Yuhong both shouted, "Your Highness, leave this person to us." However, Han Fei's void lines had already locked onto this person. Han Fei turned around and saw Mu Baimu and Situ Yuhong charging at him. He casually punched them. Get lost. Troublemakers will die. Bai Muling and Situ Yuhong were both speechless. What did he mean by making trouble? Our strength is extraordinary. However, the two of them still consciously did not attack again. After all, Han Fei's powerful combat power just now did make them a little flustered. That was 7.5 martial kings. Including the last one, that was 8.5 martial kings. If the strength of these quasi-monarchs was only ordinary, then it was understandable that Han Fei was able to kill them. However, these people's strength exceeded the strength of ordinary quasi-monarchs, and they even had many king-tier attacks. It was obvious that they had come prepared. In this case, Han Fei killed them all. This could no longer be described as powerful. He was simply a freak. With such strength, he could even fight against kings for a short period of time. They clearly understood that the two of them were no match for each other. Han Fei glanced at Xia Shaochan. "Give me a moment." And at this moment, the soul-searching art was activated. Han Fei quickly learned that these people turned out to be from the investiture of God's heaven. As soon as the three words, investiture of God's heaven, came out, Han Fei was surprised. The investiture of God's heaven was originally one of the 7 enemies of the Yin-Yang heaven, one of the 13 heavens in the inner domain. In the past, it was said that there were gods among them. However, after learning about the history of the 36 black heavens, Han Fei was sure that this was impossible. A venerable emperor could stop the 36 black heavens for 100,000 years. Gods? Were these people suffering from hysteria? What Han Fei didn't understand was why the people of the investiture of God's heaven wanted to kill Xia Shaochan. After a while, Han Fei's face changed. That was because he saw some secret. When Han Fei quickly read the memories in this person's mind, he felt terrible. After reading it, Han Fei found that the 36 Xuantians were not united. Han Fei was silent and directly cut off this person's vitality and destroyed his soul. Bai Muling and Situ Yuhong's hearts skipped a beat when they saw Han Fei slaughtering a half-king without even blinking. This was definitely a ruthless person. He slaughtered a half-king and was still calm? It was as if he had just done a trivial thing. Just how murderous was this guy? At this moment, Xia Shaochan was also surprised, happy, shocked, and thinking. What on earth had Han Fei experienced? How could he grow so fast in just a few decades? The Yin-Yang heaven had disappeared for 80,000 years. How did Han Fei find it? At this time, Xia Shaochan had too many questions in her heart to ask. Wasn't Han Fei the same? Seeing that the hexagon starfish's claws were twitching, Han Fei glanced coldly at Bai Muling, Situ Yuhong, and another merman. Han Fei said, "Can we kill these 3? The 3 of them retreated quickly and their hair stood on end. What? Does this person still want to kill us? Xia Shaochan pulled Han Fei and said, "Forget it. There were a few people who died to protect me. Although these people are not pleasant, we don't need to kill them." Xia Shaochan said, "Bai Muling, Situ Yuhong, you don't need to follow me to the place where the king died. You can find the key by yourself." Situ Yuhong was about to speak when Han Fei said leisurely, "Forget it. Just because I let you go doesn't mean you can slaughter humans at will. If I find out that you attack any of the clans except the Grand Pure Palace, the Wuji Palace, the Golden Crow Palace, the 5 Elements Palace, the Dream Weaving Palace, the God Sealing Palace, the Medicine King Palace, and the Wild Corpse Palace, I'll kill you the next time I see you." Situ Yuhong. Bai Muling. Xia Shaochan. Bai Muling was speechless. Why don't you kill all the 36 immortal palaces? Do you mean that we can kill these 8 clans at will? Just how much hatred and resentment did they have? Do you want us to be your thugs? Kill the experts of these immortal palaces? Xia Shaochan thought to herself, it seems that these clans have offended Han Fei too much. Based on her understanding of Han Fei, How could she not know that he would seek revenge for the smallest grievance? Xia Xiaochan glared at the three of them. Did you hear that? Let's do that. Don't let go of any of them. Han Fei couldn't help but tilt his head and glance at Xia Xiaochan, thinking, my wife is so reliable. Bai Muling was lost for words. Wait, Your Highness. Who is he? Xia Xiaochan glanced at Han Fei and answered with a blush, my husband. This is my husband. Go back and tell Chun Huangdian that he can forget about his schemes. Even Han Fei looked at Xia Xiaochan in surprise. How could she call him husband so casually? There must be a lot of people in the mermaid royal family who proposed marriage to Chun Huangdian. Bai Muling and Situ Yuhong were both heavenly talents who were princes of their families. Their purpose of protecting Xia Xiaochan was not pure. Looking at it now, he thought, damn it, I've clearly lost. More importantly, they seem to have lost to a fatty, which was a huge blow to their self-esteem. The two of them looked at each other speechlessly. Does the princess like fatty types? But this guy isn't handsome at all. Could it be that Her Royal Highness liked ugly men? The two of them were full of questions. Although there were thousands of dissatisfaction in his heart, this fatty's strength was simply too strong. Of course, if this fatty's strength was on the same level as theirs, they would definitely stay. They would even try to kill this fatty. But they didn't even have time to think about how to kill this fatty. This fatty actually asked if they should kill the three of them? It could be seen that this fatty's killing intent was too strong, and it was best to leave now. In this place where the king died, the strongest people who could appear were probably the group just now. Now, this fatty seemed to be quite worried about the princess. Thinking about it, at least Her Highness's safety should be guaranteed. The few of them reluctantly retreated. A moment later, when they had just left this dangerous place, they heard Bai Muling say, "What do we do? I really can't get over this anger in my heart. That fatty, how could he do that?" Situ Yuhong said, "Are you stupid? Think about it carefully. Where did this fatty come from among all the people in the 36 profound heavens? Although we basically don't know each other, we have at least met once. This person must have used some method to hide his true identity. Otherwise, think about it. Once he is exposed, it will be a secret relationship between a human and a mermaid. How could he not know the seriousness of this matter?" Bai Muling couldn't help nodding. That makes sense. Given how strong this fatty was, he must not be a nameless person. Then, if he really exists, we can definitely find him after we get out. If we can't find him, then he must have hidden his true identity. Situ Yuhong sneered. At least, the 8 families of the Taiqing and Wuji are definitely not the place where that fatty lived. Besides, this fatty must have great enmity with these families. Otherwise, why would a human ask us to help him kill a human? Bai Muling sneered. So what? The internal strife of the human race has always been endless. Just look at the 13 inner and 13 outer heavens and you'll know. In the past 80,000 years, the number of immortal palaces that have disappeared has already reached 10. Maybe if we wait any longer, they will torture themselves to death. Situ Yuhong sneered. Idiot, when the imperial palace opens in 32 years, there will definitely be a big reshuffle. He wasn't a fool. Why would he torment himself until he was gone? Forget it, let's not talk about this. I am still worried about Her Highness. If that fatty does something to Her Highness, what should we do? Bai Muling said with a dark face, "It shouldn't be possible, right?" The other merman half-king said, "Princes, this is a big taboo. Her Highness will have to leave the land of repose in a month. She can't disappear into thin air. When the time comes, as long as we tell Lord Azure Dragon about this, Her Highness will very likely be grounded. Once Her Highness is grounded, she will also be cut off from humans. No matter how strong this person is, can he kill his way to the merman royalty?" Hiss, both of them glanced at the half-king of the merfolk and sucked in a breath of cold air. Good idea. The third watch. Xia Xiaochan is finally back, isn't she? Shouldn't you leave your monthly ticket to me? End of this chapter. Chapter 1760. As soon as Han Fei entered the king graveyard, he only wasted a little time and caught up with them. Therefore, even if he encountered some obstacles on the way, he didn't waste much time. Although the major forces such as the 36 mysterious heavens and the mermaids had sent half-king realm experts, 2 groups of people had already come to this dangerous place. Even if the third group of people came, they would probably encounter Bai Muling and Situyuhong. Although Han Fei had threatened to kill them, these people had blocked a lot of enemies for Xia Shaochan after all, so they had made great contributions. At this moment, the underground city was already in a mess, and many places had collapsed. After all, the battle here had exceeded the normal intensity of the battle between half-king realm experts. A king's power had appeared here just now. Shortly after Bai Muling and Situyuhong left, Xia Shaochan suddenly jumped onto Han Fei. What? I almost died just now. I thought I would never be able to see you again. For Xia Shaochan, she had no family in the world except for Han Fei and the others. Moreover, she had thought that there were only a few of them, and they were all at the ends of the earth. Although her identity and status in the mermaids were extremely high, there were also many rules. In addition to cultivation, there was also experience. Xia Shaochan hung on Han Fei, her head on Han Fei's shoulder, and sobbed. I checked all the historical materials and learned that the place where we were before was called the Yin-Yang Heaven. But I couldn't find anything in the chaotic ocean. There was no Yin-Yang Heaven at all. It was said that it disappeared as early as 80,000 years ago. I thought I would never see you again, sob. Before she finished her sentence, Xia Shaochan choked and cried, complaining, They forced me to cultivate every day, didn't give me food, didn't let me go out, and found a lot of door guards to watch over me. In addition to cultivation, I searched through historical materials. It wasn't until I became a supremacy that I found out that the yin-yang sky might be in the savage abyss. Sob. I ran more than 80 times, and there was one time when I almost made it. Sob. Xia Shaochan cried her heart out. It had been 20 years since she left. Apart from cultivating, it was either flipping through historical records or running away. No one would be able to do that. Han Fei had done a lot of things in the past 20 years. Go to the Thousand-Star City, break into the 3 Holy Lands, escape the Waterwood Heaven, sneak into the White Shell Royal City, conquer the Thousand-Star City, and go to the cage. Han Fei thought about it carefully and found that he had a rich experience. Everything he saw was novel. But Xia Shaochan was really miserable this time. Han Fei didn't even know how she could cultivate so fast. Although the spiritual energy, and resources of the chaotic vast ocean's inner sea were much better than the yin-yang skies, it shouldn't have grown this fast, right? Moreover, judging from Xia Shaochan's attack just now, it was clear that even a demi-monarch was no match for her. However, she was only at the peak of the Venerable One. It could be seen that Xia Shaochan's talent was no worse than his. However, it made sense. The bloodline of the mermaid royal family must be of a high level. In the past, Xia Shaochan was prone to attacks because of her bloodline. After being provoked by Yang Ying, he couldn't help but awaken. Besides, Xia Shaochan was even weirder than him. She had 3 spiritual beasts, namely, 3 associated spirit. There was a shadow shrimp, a giant arowana, and a heavenly cicada. Han Fei was holding Xia Shaochan now, so he could see it clearly. Behind Xia Shaochan, the colorful cicada wings were so thin that they had almost no thickness, but they were extremely sharp. This sharpness was undoubtedly comparable to that of an ultra-quality divine weapon. Seeing that Xia Shaochan's injuries hadn't fully recovered, Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Good girl, come down first. I'll heal you." "I don't." Unexpectedly, Xia Shaochan was so determined. She said, "Are you the same as last time? Did you come here with that human holy weapon? Do you still have to go back after using it?" I won't come down. When I come down, you run away." It was the first time that Han Fei had seen Xia Xiaochan act like a spoiled child. He couldn't help but laugh. "Why would I run away? Last time, it was an accident. This time, I'm really here. Touch me, I'm solid, I'm very sturdy. If I could come here in other ways, wouldn't I have come a long time ago? Can I let you wait for more than 20 years? Xia Xiaochan shook her head. "No, I don't want to hear it. If you want to heal me, just do it this way." The big starfish said, "I'll heal you, I'll heal you." Starfish is also injured. Starfish needs healing. Only then did Han Fei notice the hexagon starfish. In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name: hexagon starfish, excess energy. Introduction: a mysterious creature, the hexagon starfish, extremely rare. It treasures as much as its life. Because it searches for treasures everywhere, it is called a moving treasure. Its 6 horns can emit strange beams of light, and 6 void gates will appear. If you enter any of them, you may get a chance or die. Be careful. Level 85 quality mysterious great path divine shield contains chaotic energy greater than 462 strands. Edible effect: there is a certain chance to obtain a defensive inheritance. Collectible 6 small world. Absorbable. Note: the comprehensive energy of this hexagon starfish is extremely high. If it doesn't make a breakthrough, its life potential will be damaged. Because the hexagon starfish was not his contractual spiritual beast, Han Fei couldn't see what combat skills it had. However, after seeing the information of the hexagon starfish, the corners of Han Fei's mouth couldn't help trembling. F***CK. This is definitely the one with the most chaotic energy among all the experts below the king level that I've seen in the chaotic ocean. F***CK. It's just an intermediate peak level venerable, but it has saved me 462 strands of chaotic energy? Only the heavens knew how this fellow survived. This thing, could it be that it drank chaos chi every day to pass its days? Also, what is excess energy? If it doesn't make a breakthrough, its life potential will be damaged? How many good things did he eat to develop this kind of behavior? When he thought of how hard he had been working outside and how he barely slept for so many years, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. He only cared about enjoying it every day. Han Fei felt angry no matter how he looked at it. Han Fei grabbed the hexagon starfish from Xia Xiaochan's shoulder and threw it to the ground. "Look, how fat are you? You are now a worm at the bottom of the sea, a round ball fish. How can you be hurt?" With that, Han Fei kicked the hexagon starfish away, thinking, are the conditions of the mermaid so good? Lying on a collapsed stone at the bottom of the sea, he muttered, "Actually, it's not as bad as she said. Starfish thinks it's good. There's food, drinks, and a clam girl's massage. Chilla." Hundreds of shadowless blades swept at the hexagon starfish like lightning. Xia Xiaochan attacked without hesitation. The hexagon starfish let out a strange cry, and a barrier appeared around its body, blocking so many shadowless blades. Xia Xiaochan's attacks were at least at the advanced venerable realm, but they were so easily blocked by Mr. Hexagon Starfish. This surprised Han Fei. It seems that this guy is going to make a breakthrough. After the breakthrough, it should be very useful. Han Fei said, "Xia Xiaochan, I'm already here. If you cry again, I'm going to tell Zhang Xuanyu and the others." Xia Xiaochan immediately tightened her grip. "Don't say it. If you say it, I won't forgive you. Where are they? Are they here too?" Han Fei couldn't help but laugh. "Do you think this place is so easy to come to? I only managed to come to this place after a narrow escape from death." Hearing this, Xia Xiaochan's heart suddenly tightened, and she freed a hand to pinch Han Fei. "Are you hurt?" Han Fei was speechless. "I'm hurt. How can I let you pinch me?" However, he didn't have time to think so much. Han Fei struggled to raise his hands. The apocalyptic divine technique descended, and Xia Xiaochan's wings, which were as thin as glass mirrors, were being repaired step by step. The small hole that couldn't be repaired by the holy light technique was also recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, the wound disappeared without a trace. Xia Xiaochan had never seen an apocalyptic divine technique before. Her whole body went limp under the light, and she unconsciously floated in the air. The 6 big eyes of the hexagon starfish began to roll quickly. Its figure flashed, and it quietly appeared in the light beam of the apocalyptic divine technique. The hexagon starfish, like a piece of plasticine, lay softly on the stone under Han Fei's feet, and its 6 big eyes were so comfortable that they were blurred. Han Fei kicked it again, directly kicking it dozens of kilometers away, and snorted. Master Hexagon, if you can't break through to the advanced venerable realm within a month, believe it or not, I will skin you alive. The hexagon starfish screamed. No. It's so difficult to break through. It's not something starfish can do at all. These years, starfish have suffered enough of the pain of breaking through. Han Fei couldn't bear it anymore. He stretched out his hand, and a space crack appeared in the void, and he slashed at the hexagon starfish. The hexagon starfish screamed again. An invisible shield wall blocked in front of him. Han Fei's slash shattered the shield wall, but it was not damaged at all. However, before Han Fei finished his harsh words, he sneered. I feel that you have a lot of chaotic energy on you. Since you don't want to make a breakthrough, it's a waste to keep this chaotic energy on you. Why don't you take the initiative to pull down a few tentacles and fry them? They will be a great tonic. Hiss, the hexagon starfish only felt that his tentacles were cold. How can a human be so terrifying? He even wants to fry my tentacles? But thinking of how Han Fei killed a half-king powerhouse and resisted a king's blow, the hexagon starfish was scared and hummed. Okay. Then I'll make a breakthrough. Chapter 1761. Han Fei slightly frowned. He didn't know it until he activated the Apocalypse Divine Technique. He discovered that Xia Xiaochan still had a stubborn disease in her body after activating the Apocalypse Divine Technique. It seemed that she had been seriously injured before, so when the Heavenly Awakening Divine Technique broke out, she felt so comfortable, as if she were immersed in a hot spring. After the brilliance of the Apocalypse Divine Technique disappeared, Xia Xiaochan grabbed Han Fei's arm the moment she landed. What kind of healing technique was that? Is a spirit gatherer's healing technique so powerful? Han Fei, on the other hand, frowned and asked back, What happened to your internal injuries? Didn't you say that you've been cultivating all day for the past 20 years? How could you have such a serious injury? Really? The hexagon starfish said, I know. 8 years ago you sneaked out and ended up being targeted by someone. You were almost killed by that person with a single blow. Fortunately, the fierce king came, or we would have been dead. Han Fei was confused. The fierce king? Xia Xiaochan said in disgust. That's Chun Huangdian. He yells at me every day. Sooner or later, I'll beat the crap out of him. Han Fei thought to himself, it seems that, after learning Xia Xiaochan's identity, he didn't respect her at all. It's only natural that he would yell at her. As for the people who attacked Xia Xiaochan when she snuck out, they must be in cahoots with these people today. Han Fei said, Chun Huangdian must be beaten. That old B***** killed me once. I won't be able to forgive myself if I don't avenge him. However, our top priority is to kill another group of people first. Xia Xiaochan asked, Who? Han Fei said coldly, Everyone from the investiture heaven must die. The king of the investiture heaven may have become someone else's puppet. The people who hunted you this time are all from the investiture heaven. These people were all peak-level venerables before they came in, but they all became half-kings after they came in. They must have hidden their strength with some kind of great technique. We've only met 10 people so far. If I remember correctly, there should be 28 of them. Xia Xiaochan was shocked. The investiture heaven? The people who want to kill me are from the investiture heaven? Han Fei nodded. I saw from that man's memory that the king of the gods' investiture heaven issued a kill order in person. They're not here to look for the key at all. They're here to hunt you down and kill you. Hissed, Master Hexagon Starfish's 6 big eyes rolled. Then what should I do? Only 10 people have died. Doesn't that mean there are close to 20.5 monarchs? Even Xia Xiaochan was stunned. All the experts of the God's Bane heaven were here to kill him? Could it be that the dignified immortal palace was also controlled by that person? Han Fei was shocked too. If it was a hunting order from the king himself, what was Xia Xiaochan's real identity? There was a reason why so many experts wanted to kill her, right? However, the current environment was clearly not suitable for telling stories. Han Fei stepped on the ground and the phantoms of mountains and rivers appeared. Han Fei said, "Don't resist. Let's go to another small world." After a while, when Xia Xiaochan and the hexagon starfish came to the sea-quelling painting, Xia Xiaochan said in surprise, "Is this floating island?" The hexagon starfish exclaimed, "Huh! The spiritual energy here is so thin. It's uncomfortable." With a thought from Han Fei, the hexagon starfish disappeared. But in the sky, the sound lingered. Han Fei's voice sounded leisurely. "Master Hexagon Starfish, I'm not joking with you. If you don't make a breakthrough within a month, I'll help you make a breakthrough myself." "No. The starfish doesn't want to practice." Xia Xiaochan blushed slightly. "Actually, the big starfish has been doing well these years." Han Fei didn't believe her. "He's been overnourished. Not bad? It's just that his life is too comfortable. Someone has to exercise his muscles and bones." The floating island in the sea-quelling painting was no longer the one that was blown out of shape during the war. Now, after many years of reproduction, it was beautiful and lush, but Han Fei usually didn't come here. When the noise of the starfish was gone, the two came to the land with fresh air from the turbulent bottom of the sea. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan finally looked at each other and could have a good chat. However, how could they talk in this situation? Just now, the battle was urgent, and both of them were still worried. Now they were relaxed. Han Fei saw Xia Xiaochan's eyelashes trembling slightly, her cheeks blushing, and he could hear Xia Xiaochan's heartbeat. When Xia Xiaochan was a child, she was born with the ability of charm. Now that she was so big, her charm was much stronger than when she was a child. At this time, Han Fei also changed from Fan Datong to his original appearance. His own heart was also beating wildly, and his throat was a little dry. As the saying went, the heavenly thunder touched the earthly fire. They hadn't seen each other for many years, and the two had been longing for each other for a long time. How could they hold back? Han Fei hugged Xia Xiaochan's waist, and their lips and teeth entwined. His long-cherished wish of many years had been fulfilled. And Xia Xiaochan was no longer the little girl who didn't know anything. Han Fei had taught her a lot in the past. Now at this time, the strength of the peak-level venerable had long been forgotten. His clothes were torn and the seasons changed. Heaven and earth were his seats, and the clouds and rain were tumbling half a day later. Han Fei lay on the grass with his arms spread wide. Xia Xiaochan lay beside him, holding her chin with her hands, gently patting the grass with her calves and feet, and looked at Han Fei with her head tilted. At this moment, Han Fei was talking with fervor and assurance. At that time, it was really a critical moment. I blocked a king alone. What could I do? Behind me were the 4 major races and billions of creatures. I had to block them even if I couldn't. Fortunately, I learned the time art from the Chu sect. In the end, I could fight against a king. Han Fei was bragging about his glorious deeds. From Xia Xiaochan's departure until he snatched the sea-quelling painting, passed the explorer stage, became a venerable, and became a half-king. Of course, Han Fei didn't say everything in detail. For example, Han Fei didn't mention the part about the ideal palace. He only mentioned that after entering the ideal palace, there was no memory. There were also some secrets, such as the demon purification pot, which Han Fei naturally didn't mention. The most important thing was that Han Fei hadn't figured it out yet. Xia Xiaochan listened with relish on the side. Sometimes she was nervous, sometimes she was cheerful, and sometimes she didn't even dare to breathe. As she listened, she couldn't help but burst into tears and lay on Han Fei's body several times. Of course, she knew that no matter how simple Han Fei's description was, it was very difficult at that time. What kind of law enforcer attacked a venerable? That was something only a lunatic would do. He was forced to hide his identity for many years. With Han Fei's character, how forced must he be? Why did he choose to compromise like this? He defeated so many venerables in the Thousand-Star City alone. That was even more shocking. What was the density of spiritual energy in the Yin-Yang heaven? She knew very well. She also knew that even Xueshenqi, the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island, was just an explorer. Han Fei had even confronted the Tao of Time head-on and killed him. Not to mention that Han Fei fought against a real king as a half-king. If it were anyone else, they would have been dead. Xia Xiaochan had never heard of a venerable who could fight a half-king, even in the mermaid royal family. So, the more relaxed Han Fei was, the more she knew how hard it was. Han Fei tilted his head and said, "What about you? Who is it that wants to kill you? Why was your identity exposed when the heavenly cicada was born?" Xia Xiaochan heaved a long sigh. Chun Huangyan said that it was my father who wanted to kill me because I awakened the heavenly cicada, which revealed their bloodline. It seems that those people attach great importance to bloodlines. Because of this, my mother fought a great battle with the experts of their clan and is still in a deep sleep to this day. As she spoke, there was anger in Xia Xiaochan's eyes. If one day in the future, when I open the sea and the sky, I will sweep the Yin family to the ground. I will make the heavenly cicada bloodline that they are so proud of disappear from the sea. Han Fei frowned. And family? You even know the surname of their family? Where did you learn it? Xia Xiaochan shook her head. Chun Huangyan said that. He said that the Yin family's forces are still outside the chaotic ocean. However, they can already infiltrate the chaotic ocean. Hiss! Han Fei couldn't help but sit up. They're still outside the chaotic ocean? Isn't it said that the chaotic ocean can only be crossed from the east? If someone can come in, wouldn't he be able to kill his way to the mermaid royal family if he's strong enough? Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but shake her head. No. There's a conclusion about this in the family. It seems that they can only come in a certain way, but they can't come here directly. These people are from the investiture of God's heaven, but the investiture of God's heaven is one of the 36 mysterious heavens. By logic, it shouldn't be in contact with the outside world. So, they may have influenced the investiture of God's heaven in some way. Han Fei's heart sank. He thought that the 36 mysterious heavens were already strong enough. There were a lot of kings here, and the martial emperor city could even suppress the chaotic ocean. Han Fei didn't believe that there weren't any emperors here. Now, as far as he knew from Xia Xiaochan, they were outside the chaotic ocean. They even knew the existence of the chaotic ocean, but since they knew the existence of the chaotic ocean, they couldn't come in? Could it be that the 36 mysterious heavens was also a super-secret realm equivalent to the Savage Abyss? However, if that was the case, then this doll game was too powerful, wasn't it? How large was the area? Han Fei couldn't help but think of what his mother said. I want to integrate the 36 mysterious heavens and rule this chaotic ocean. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Even if I really rule this place in the end, I'm afraid there will still be greater crises waiting for me.